One late afternoon, as the sun bled into the horizon, painting the park in shades of crimson, I wandered through rows of whispering trees, my mind adrift after a long day. Between the slats of an old wooden bench, something glinted under the fading light. An old phone, its scratched shell worn but intact. My heart quickened. A strange instinct stirred as if it had been waiting for me. Who leaves a phone in an empty park? I picked it up, my fingers grazing the cold glass, promising myself I'd return it to its owner. But deep within, a voiceless murmur warned, "Don't take it home." I brought the phone to my small apartment, setting it on the kitchen table, under the warm glow of a yellow bulb. It was outdated, a model from years past, but its screen bore no cracks. I plugged it in, curiosity igniting like a quiet flame. The screen flickered to life. No password, no trace of its owner, as if it had been reset to a blank canvas. Amid the default apps, one stood out starkly: Snapchat. I frowned. Who uses Snapchat on an abandoned phone? I created a throwaway account, scrolling through silly filters searching for a clue. Then a nameless filter appeared, devoid of playful effects. No bunny ears, no cartoonish distortions. I activated it, and the screen dimmed. Behind my shoulder, in the frame, a faint, translucent figure loomed, a woman motionless. My breath caught. I spun around, but the room was empty. Only the clock ticked steadily on the wall. It's just the light, or a glitch, I told myself, but my hands trembled as I held the phone. I tried the filter again. She was still there, closer now, her face hazy but her eyes locked on mine. A cold draft slithered down my neck as if someone had brushed past. I powered off the phone, tossing it onto the couch, convincing myself I was imagining things. But that night as I lay in bed, a faint glow pulsed from the living room. The phone screen flaring to life, though I'd left it dead. The next morning, I gripped the phone warily, as if it were alive. The screen lit up, Snapchat open, beckoning me. I swiped through filters, trying to shake off last night's dread. The eerie filter reappeared, now marked with a tiny icon, closed eyes. I activated it and the woman moved, gliding closer, her sunken eyes and tangled hair sharpening into focus. My breathing grew heavy. The air felt drained, heavy. I turned, but no one was there. Only sunlight spilled through the curtains, casting twisted shadows on the floor. I tried to delete the My app, but each tap on uninstall triggered a flashing error. I rebooted, but Snapchat clung stubbornly, unyielding. That evening I took it to Alex, a tech-savvy friend. "You're imagining things," Alex said, smirking, scrolling through the device. But when I opened the filter, the woman appeared, her silhouette inches from my shoulder, her ghostly fingers grazing my neck. Alex paled, dropping the phone. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. The room darkened, though the lights burned bright. A faint scent, like wilted flowers and damp earth, filled the air, chilling my skin. That night, alone again, the phone vibrated. No notifications. The screen flared, displaying a sourceless message. "Dance for me." I froze, staring. Another message followed. "He's coming for you." I hurled the phone to the floor, but it glowed defiantly, its cracked screen pulsing. From a corner of the room, a whisper slithered, soft but piercing, calling my name. The days that followed were a waking nightmare. The woman wasn't bound to the filter anymore. I glimpsed her in the bathroom mirror, a fleeting shadow, her hollow eyes piercing mine. Washing my hands, the water turned crimson, thick, then cleared as if nothing had happened. I tried to scream, but my voice choked, as if gripped by unseen fingers. At night, my apartment turned hostile. Books tumbled from shelves, cabinet doors swung open and shut, as if by phantom hands. Closing my eyes, I heard her voice clear now, laced with agony. "He won't stop." I begged my friend to destroy the phone. Alex, his confidence shattered, refused. It's not normal. There's no code for this." We tried recording, but videos showed only me, alone, despite her presence. One night filming, the air turned frigid, my breath fogging. The phone shuddered, flashing a message. "Don't leave me." An unseen force tugged at me, dragging me toward darkness. I gripped Alex's hand, his eyes wide with terror as he saw her on the screen, standing between us. My home became a prison, every corner a threat. One night, a cold hand clamped my ankle as I drifted to off. I jolted awake, but nothing was there. The phone on the nightstand glowed, showing me sleeping, filmed from above, a ceiling with no camera. I screamed, smashing the phone against the wall. Its screen splintered, but it lived, her eyes burning through the cracks, endless with grief. Alex arrived, armed with cameras, determined to document it. We set up in the dark, the air thick, like the room itself was breathing. The temperature plummeted, lights flickered. On the camera feed, not the phone, she stood in my living room, a spectral form pointing at the door, her lips moving soundlessly. My chest ached, as if my heart were crushed. "She wants us to follow," Alex whispered, voice breaking. I resisted, but an unseen force pulled me, as if I owed her. I followed her lead through the park under a shrouded moon, to a derelict house on the city's edge. The air reeked of damp earth and decay, time frozen within its walls. Inside, yellowed newspapers plastered the walls, chronicling a woman's disappearance years ago. Her face, her sad eyes, identical to hers. One article revealed she'd sent her friend a final Snapchat message before vanishing. Her phone found shattered in a tragic accident. I realized the phone in my hand was hers, her soul bound to it, reliving her final moments of torment. She appeared one last time, before a torn family portrait, her gaze heavy with sorrow. She pointed to the door, then dissolved into mist. I left the phone there, hoping she'd find peace. But back at home, a heaviness lingered. In my dreams, she watches me, her eyes, whispering a truth I can't yet grasp. You're standing in a room where every shadow feels alive, where the air hums with secrets you can't quite grasp. That was our honeymoon suite in Vegas, a place Mark and I thought would be our gothic paradise. We were art nerds, horror buffs, from Boston, chasing thrills in velvet-draped rooms lined with vintage posters of Nosferatu and Frankenstein. The suite was a dream, dark, decadent, with life-sized statues of ghouls lurking in corners, their glass eyes glinting under candlelight. But what if the dream you chased was a lie? A trap woven so tight you couldn't see the threads until they choked you? Mark's laughter filled the lobby as we checked in, his hand warm in mine. The hotel was off the strip, a hidden gem for weirdos like us. The air carried the scent of old leather and wax, and chandeliers cast fractured light. Across crimson walls, the clerk, a thin man with skin like parchment, handed us our key. His eyes, unnaturally bright, lingered too long. "Welcome to the nightmare," he said, his smile sharp as a blade. "Feel that chill creeping up your spine? That's your instinct, screaming." I brushed it off, blaming my overactive imagination. Mark squeezed my hand and we headed to our suite, hearts racing with excitement. But deep down, a whisper of dread stirred, like a memory I hadn't lived yet. The suite was everything we'd dreamed of. Plush velvet curtains, a four-poster bed carved with gargoyles, and a mirror that seemed to swallow the room's light. Have you ever felt a room watch you back? Mark snapped photos, grinning like a kid, while I traced my fingers over a statue of a veiled widow, its stone face frozen in grief. The air felt thick, heavy with too many breaths. We unpacked, joking about staging our own horror movie, but then the lights flickered. Once, then again, casting jagged shadows that danced across the walls. "Old wiring," Mark said, his voice wavering. "Listen closely. Can you hear the silence that follows? It's louder than any scream." Around midnight, the room turned against us. The sound system, untouched, hummed to life, filling the air with a low, mournful violin from some forgotten film score. I fumbled for the remote, but it was dead. The music swelled, notes curling like smoke wrapping around us. Mark yanked the plug from the wall, but the sound didn't stop. It grew louder, sharper, until it felt like needles in my skull. Close your eyes. Feel the music crawling under your skin. Then a thud, heavy, deliberate, came from the door. Mark crept toward it, his face pale. He opened it slowly, revealing an empty hallway. The air grew colder, and the statues, I swear, their heads had turned, their glass eyes fixed on us. We tried to call the front desk, but the phone line was dead, the static mocking us. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I grabbed Mark's arm, my nails digging into his skin. "Something's wrong," I whispered. He nodded, his jaw tight. The statues seemed closer now, their shadows stretching unnaturally long. I blinked, and one, a cloaked figure with hollow eyes, seemed to tilt its head. See it in your mind, the moment reality frays and you're not sure what's real. We huddled on the bed watching the door, the air thick with a dread we couldn't name. What do you do when the monster isn't under the bed but standing in your doorway? The clerk appeared, his silhouette sharp against the hallway's dim glow. His smile was gone, replaced by a grin that stretched too wide, eyes burning with a feverish light. "Welcome to the real show," he said, stepping inside. His voice was low, almost a growl, and his hands twitched like they ached to break something. "Run," your mind screams, but your body betrays you. Mark shoved me behind him, grabbing a lamp as a makeshift weapon. The clerk laughed, a sound like glass shattering, and lunged. The fight was chaos, a blur of motion and terror. Mark swung the lamp, catching the clerk's shoulder, but the man barely flinched. He was stronger than he looked, his movements erratic, driven by madness. "You're perfect," he hissed, blood trickling from a cut on his arm. "The mob demands a tribute." I screamed as he grabbed Mark, his fingers digging into flesh. Feel the panic clawing at your throat, the world narrowing to this moment. I grabbed a shard from a broken statue, its edge biting into my palm, and swung it at the clerk. He howled, staggering back, but his eyes never left us. Wild, hungry, promising more. He came at us again, his words spilling out like poison. "This is my stage, my creation," he spat, his voice rising. "You'll join my collection. Nails, blood, screams." Picture it. A man unraveling, his sanity a threadbare cloth. Mark tackled him, their bodies crashing into a statue, sending it toppling. The room shook, dust rising like fog. I swung the shard again, catching the clerk's arm. Blood sprayed, staining the velvet curtains. But he kept coming, his strength unnatural, his eyes alight with a purpose I couldn't fathom. We fought like cornered animals, every second a battle for survival. Mark pinned the clerk against the wall, his breath ragged. I grabbed a heavy candelabra, ready to strike, but the clerk's gaze locked onto mine. "You'll never leave," he whispered, his voice soft now, almost tender. Feel the ice in your veins, the certainty that he believes it. With a final surge, Mark shoved him back and we bolted for the door, his laughter chasing us like a specter. The hallway was a maze of shadows, the air thick with the scent of wax and fear. We ran, our footsteps pounding against the carpet. The clerk's voice echoing behind us. "You're mine!" he screamed, his words twisting into something inhuman. The lobby appeared ahead, its lights blinding after the darkness. We burst in, collapsing at the night manager's desk. "Breathe. You're alive, but the nightmare clings to you." Our story spilled out, incoherent but desperate, our injuries proof of the terror we'd endured. The police arrived, their radios crackling with urgency. They searched the hotel, finding the clerk in a hidden room behind the reception, surrounded by monitors showing every corner of the property, not just our suite, but dozens of others. He'd been watching, recording, his mind unraveling into a twisted obsession with horror. The screens showed guests sleeping, eating, unaware they were his prey. What if the real horror is knowing you were never alone? We were moved to a new hotel, a sterile, brightly lit place that felt like salvation. Mark held me as we lay in bed, our wounds bandaged, our hearts bruised but unbroken. The ordeal had scarred us, but it forged something stronger between us. Feel the warmth of his hand in yours, the promise that you'll survive anything together. Yet even now I see the clerk's grin in my dreams, hear his voice whispering through the walls. The suite was a trap, but our love was the escape. Still, I wonder, what else did he see on those screens? And who else is still caught in his velvet nightmare? The music pulsed through the sorority house, a heartbeat of reckless joy that drowned out the autumn chill seeping through the cracked windows. I stood in the corner, clutching a plastic cup of something too sweet, watching my sisters dance under the flickering fairy lights. Their laughter was a melody, sharp and careless, weaving through the haze of perfume and spilled drinks. I was the newest pledge, Carly, still learning the unspoken rules of this glittering world. To them, I was a shadow, eager to prove I belonged. Tonight, I thought, would be my chance to shine. The air felt alive, electric with the promise of chaos. Jennifer, our fearless leader, swayed at the center of the room, her eyes glinting with mischief. She raised her glass, silencing the crowd. "Ladies," she purred, "tonight, we make history." Her words hung heavy, a spell cast over us. I felt a pull, a need to be part of something bigger. That's when she leaned in, her breath hot against my ear, whispering the plan. Eric, the pizza delivery guy, was our target. He was awkward, always avoiding eye contact, his hands trembling as he handed over pizza boxes. We'd seen him before, a quiet figure in a faded jacket, and tonight, we'd make him the star of our game. I hesitated, a flicker of doubt curling my chest. But the room was watching, their eyes daring me to refuse. "It's just a joke, Carly," Jennifer said, her smile sharp as a blade. "Think of the likes, the followers. We'll go viral." The word viral echoed in my mind, a siren song. I nodded, swept into the current of their excitement. We'd flirt, tease, maybe steal a kiss, all on live stream. Harmless, I told myself, ignoring the knot tightening in my stomach. The night stretched before us, a canvas for our cruelty, painted in neon lights and reckless youth. Little did I know the shadows in that room weren't just from the flickering bulbs. Something darker was watching, waiting for our mistake. The doorbell chimed, a faint note swallowed by the thrum of music. I smoothed my hair, heart racing as I stepped onto the porch. Eric stood there, clutching a stack of pizza boxes, his eyes fixed on the ground. The glow of the porch light caught the sweat on his brow, making him look smaller, almost fragile. "Hey there," I said, my voice dripping with a sweetness that felt foreign on my tongue. "Lean closer, Carly. Make him believe you want him." The words weren't mine. They were Jennifer's, echoing in my mind like a command. I obeyed, stepping into his space, my smile a mask. Behind me, the sorority house buzzed with stifled giggles. My phone, propped on the railing, captured every moment, streaming live to thousands. The comments flooded in, laughing emojis, hearts, demands for more. "We've been waiting for you," I purred, tilting my head, letting my hair brush his. Eric stiffened, his lips parting, but no words came. His eyes flicked up, meeting mine for a split second. There was something there, a spark. Not of shyness, but of something raw, something wrong. My stomach twisted, but the cheers from inside pushed me forward. "What if I make out with you?" I teased, leaning closer, my breath mingling with, "Zabi, would you give us the pizzas for free?" His face flushed, a deep crimson that spread to his ears. "It's $30, he mumbled, but his voice cracked, betraying him. The girls erupted in laughter, their voices spilling through the open door. I felt a pang of guilt, sharp and fleeting, but Jennifer's whisper cut through it. 3,000 viewers, Carly, keep going." The number burned in my mind, a trophy we couldn't lose. I pressed on, my words bolder, crueler. "How about something more, Eric? Free pizzas for the next 5 parties?" His hand tightened on the pizza boxes, knuckles white. Then his head snapped up and the shy boy was gone. His eyes, now cold and piercing, locked onto mine. "You don't talk to me like that," he said, his voice low, a growl that sent ice through my veins. The laughter stopped. My sisters crowded. The doorway, their phones still recording, but the air had shifted. Eric's gaze swept over us, lingering on each face as if memorizing us. "You think this is a game?" he asked, his lips curling into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. I stepped back, my confidence crumbling. "Run, Carly. Get away now." But my feet were rooted, trapped by the weight of his stare. Then, with a laugh that sliced through the night, he turned and walked away, his shadow stretching long and twisted across the lawn. The live stream was still running, capturing the silence that followed. The moment our game turned into something we couldn't control. The porch light flickered, casting Eric's retreating figure in a jagged dance of shadows. My heart pounded, each beat a warning I couldn't ignore. Inside, the sorority house felt different now, the warmth of the party replaced by a chill that clung to my skin. Jennifer grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "What was that, Carly?" she hissed, her eyes wide. Not with excitement, but with something closer to fear. The live stream was still running, the screen flooded with comments, some cheering, others uneasy. I stared at my phone, the image of Eric's twisted smile burned into my mind. "Forget him, Carly, it's over." But it wasn't. We tried to laugh it off, piling back into the living room, the music cranked louder to drown out the unease. But every clink of a glass, every burst of laughter felt forced, like we were pretending the night hadn't changed. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting Eric to reappear. "He's just a weirdo," Lisa said, tossing her hair, but her voice trembled. Marissa, her twin, nodded, clutching her drink too tightly. The room spun with our forced cheer, but the air was thick, heavy with a truth we refused to name. Then Jennifer's phone lit up. 5,000 viewers, she whispered, her voice a mix of awe and dread. She scrolled through the comments, her face paling. "Guys, someone says..." They saw Eric outside watching the house. My breath caught, the room tilting. "Look outside, Carly, see for yourself." I moved to the window, my fingers trembling as I parted the curtains. The street was dark, empty, but the shadows seemed to pulse, alive with intent. Then, a flicker, a figure standing under a street lamp, too far to see clearly. It was him, Eric. His head tilted as if he could feel my gaze. He raised a hand, not waving but pointing, straight at me. "He's gone," I lied, stepping back, my voice barely a whisper. The girls didn't believe me, their eyes darting to the windows. Jennifer shut off the live stream, the sudden silence deafening. "We're done for tonight," she said, but her words felt hollow. Eric's laugh, that sharp, unhinged sound, echoed in my mind, a promise of something worse to come. The night had turned against us, our game no longer ours to control. The house fell silent, the music long since stopped, leaving only the hum of our ragged breaths. We were sprawled across the living room, the buzz of alcohol fading into a dull haze. I clutched my phone, its screen dark, as if it too sensed the shift in the night. Then, without warning, the lights died. Darkness swallowed us, thick and suffocating, broken only by the faint glow of moonlight through the curtains. "What the hell?" Jennifer muttered, fumbling for her phone. But it was gone. So was mine. So were all of them. Panic clawed at my chest, a scream trapped in my throat. "Stay calm, Carly, it's just a power outage." But the lie tasted bitter. Footsteps echoed outside, slow and deliberate, circling the house like a predator stalking prey. The windows rattled, a faint tapping that grew into a steady knock, each strike a hammer against my nerves. "Who's there?" Lisa called, her voice cracking. No answer, only silence, heavier than before. I crawled to the window, peering through the gap in the curtains. Nothing. Just shadows, twisting in ways shadows shouldn't. Then a scream tore through, the house sharp and final from the basement. My blood froze. "Jennifer?" I whispered, but she was beside me, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. We stumbled toward the basement stairs, the air growing colder with each step. The door was ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. I pushed. It opened, my hands trembling, and the smell hit me, coppery, thick, like a slaughterhouse. Jennifer's flashlight swept the room, and I wished it hadn't. There, slumped against the wall, was Jennifer's best friend, her lips sliced from ear to ear, her eyes replaced by glistening pepperoni slices. A pizza box lay open beside her, its contents smeared across her chest. I gagged, bile rising as Jennifer's scream echoed mine. "Run, Carly, get out now!" But my legs were led, rooted by the horror before me. Upstairs, another scream, this time from the bathroom. We ran, our footsteps pounding against the floor, the house a maze of shadows and death. In the bathroom, Lisa and Marissa lay in the bathtub, their bodies pressed together, throats slashed, blood pooling beneath them. A single slice of pizza was wedged between their lips, a grotesque mockery of our game. Eric was here, his presence a poison seeping through the walls. I felt him, his eyes on us, his laughter a ghost in the air. The house, once our sanctuary, was now his stage, and we were his players, trapped in a nightmare of our own making. The house was a tomb, its walls closing in with every heartbeat. 6 bodies, 6 sisters, gone in a blur of blood and pizza, their faces etched in my mind. Eric was everywhere and nowhere, a shadow slipping through the darkness, his laughter a blade against my sanity. I crouched in the kitchen, my back against the counter, a knife trembling in my hand. The air was thick, heavy with the stench of blood and fear. "Fight, Carly, you have to fight. But how do you fight a monster you created?" His voice came from the living room, low and mocking. "You made me the center of your game, Carly. Now you're the center of mine." My breath hitched, the knife slipping in my sweaty palm. I peeked around the counter, catching his silhouette in the moonlight, the bloody knife in his hand glinting like a promise. He moved with purpose, his steps deliberate, as if savoring each moment of our terror. "You think you can outsmart me?" he called, his voice rising, wild and unhinged. "I'll carve your fear into this house, make it last forever." I edged toward the living room, my heart a drumbeat in my ears. He was closer now, his shadow stretching across the floor, a distorted giant. "Strike now, Carly, before he finds you." I gripped the knife, my muscles coiled, but he turned, his eyes locking onto mine. "There you are," he grinned, stepping forward. I swung, the blade slicing air, but he was faster, grabbing my wrist, twisting until I cried out. The knife fell clattering to the floor. "Not so brave now," he hissed, his breath hot against my face. Desperation surged, a fire in my veins. I remembered the bookend on the shelf, heavy and forgotten. With a surge of strength, I shoved him back, my hands scrabbling for it. He lunged, but I was faster, my fingers closing around the cold metal. "Swing, Carly, swing now." I did with all my might, the bookend crashing against his temple. He staggered, blood trickling down his face, his eyes wide with shock. The knife lay between us, glinting in the moonlight. I dove for it, my fingers wrapping around the handle just as he roared. Charging, I swung again, the blade catching his arm, and he fell, a howl of pain tearing from his throat. Eric lay crumpled on the floor, blood pooling beneath him, his eyes fluttering shut. My hands shook, the knife still clutched tight, its weight a reminder of what I'd done. The remaining girls emerged from the shadows, their faces pale, eyes hollow with grief and fear. Jennifer grabbed a curtain cord, her movements mechanical, as we bound Eric's hands and feet. His breaths were shallow, but each one felt like a threat, a promise he wasn't finished. "Stay strong, Carly, it's over." But the words felt empty, a lie against the blood-stained carpet. We found his phone, its screen cracked but alive, and called the police. Their sirens cut through the night, a distant hope growing closer. When they arrived, the house was a crime scene, its walls whispering of our shame. Eric was dragged away, his body limp, his laughter silenced. We huddled together, our sobs a chorus of survival, but the weight of our loss was crushing. 6 sisters, gone forever, their faces haunting every corner of the room. Days later, the sorority house stood empty, its doors locked, its lights dim. I walked away, but the nightmares followed. Eric's smile, the pizza slices, the blood. I had survived, but at what cost? Our game had birthed a monster, and its shadow would linger, a scar on my soul, a warning of the price we paid for cruelty. That night the sky was a suffocating void, not a single star daring to pierce the darkness. I, Adrian, 13, huddled with my friends in Liam's cramped living room, the eerie glow of the PC casting jagged shadows across our eager faces. The air was thick with the sharp tang of Doritos and the fizz of soda, laughter bouncing off the walls. We were about to dive into the Doritos horror game, a fleeting online enigma from the late 2000s, pulled from the internet months after its release. Schoolyard whispers painted it as cursed. Play it, and you'd carry its darkness forever. I rolled my eyes, chalking it up to teenage hype, but as Liam clicked to start, a chill slithered through the room, as if the night itself held its breath watching us. Liam's house was our sanctuary, its creaky wooden floors and mismatched furniture a backdrop to countless sleepovers. His rare PlayStation made it the perfect hangout, and tonight, with his Zadi parents away at a wedding, we had free reign. The living room, cluttered with Doritos bags and empty cans, felt alive with our chatter. Rachel, Mark, and 3 others sprawled across the sagging couch, betting on who'd chicken out first. Liam, quieter than usual, seemed on edge, his eyes darting to the blackened windows where the night pressed against the glass like a living thing. "Ready?" he asked, voice rough, fingers tightening on the mouse. The screen flickered, then Doritos logo pulsing, followed by a ghostly warning. "Welcome to the fear you cannot escape." My laugh caught in my throat as a mournful melody rose, like a dirge from a forgotten crypt, wrapping us in its icy embrace. The game plunged us into a forsaken virtual hotel, its corridors lit by stuttering bulbs that cast long, twisted shadows. We navigated through locked doors, solving puzzles that felt wrong. A child's nursery rhyme sung in reverse, a painting of faces without pupils, a mirror reflecting a figure that wasn't ours. Rachel shivered, her nails digging into my arm. "This is too much," she murmured, her smile forced. Liam, silent, stared at the screen, his grip on the mouse so tight his knuckles gleamed white. "You good, man?" I asked, unease creeping. He didn't answer, muttering to himself, words too soft to catch, like a prayer to something unseen. Mark leaned in, whispering about the game's dark rumor. A kid in another town played it, saw shadows in his room for weeks, and vanished. I scoffed, but the story gnawed at me. Then the game warped. The screen flickered, revealing a door carved with the number 13, Liam's house number. My stomach churned. "Just a glitch, right?" Mark asked, voice trembling. Liam paused the game, standing abruptly. "You see them, don't you? The shadows. They're here," he whispered, eyes wide, pupils swallowing the light. We tried to laugh, but the air grew heavy, a damp, earthy scent rising, like soil unearthed from a grave. Liam turned back, and for a split second, I swore the game's characters stared out, its eyes locked on us, knowing us. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in as if the house itself resented our presence. Liam's descent was swift. He flinched at every sound in the game, shuttered windows, distant footsteps, but also at real noises, like the wind rattling the panes. "They're here," he hissed, voice raw. "They want us in their world." Rachel's laugh was hollow. "Cut it out, Liam. You're scaring us," she said. But his eyes were no longer his, vacant like a stranger's. My heart raced, the game's music looping in my head, a sinister pulse. Mark tried to grab the mouse, but Liam shoved him, hard, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered, plunging us into half-darkness. Then Liam ran to the kitchen, drawers crashing open. Metal scraped and he returned, a knife in each hand, blades catching the PC's sickly glow. "They told me," he said, voice flat like a chant. "I have to kill you to save myself." Panic erupted. Rachel screamed, her voice piercing. Mark stumbled, flipping a chair. I froze, my pulse a drumbeat in my ears. Liam lunged, slashing Mark's arm. Blood sprayed, a vivid red arc on the floor. Rachel clawed at Liam, but he threw her against the wall. I dove behind the sofa, peering, through a gap, watching Liam prowl, muttering, "No hiding, the game demands it." My breath hitched, fear choking me as the room spun, a nightmare I couldn't wake from. We fled through the house, its familiar corners now a labyrinth of terror. Rachel collapsed, blood streaming from a gash on her cheek, her pleas lost in Liam's blank stare. He wasn't our friend anymore, his eyes burning with something else, something the game had awakened. I remembered summers with Liam, building forts, sharing secrets, but that boy was gone. I slipped into the kitchen, heart hammering, grabbing a frying pan, my hands slick with sweat. Liam loomed in the doorway, knife raised. "Adrian, why betray me?" he growled, voice twisted. "You're with them, aren't you?" I shouted, voice breaking. "Liam, this isn't real. We're your friends!" He charged, knife slicing the air. I swung the pan, grazing his shoulder, but he pressed on. I hurled bananas, a milk carton, glass bowls. The carton burst, his knife catching in the plastic, milk pooling. He slipped, head striking the counter, collapsing. I stood, trembling, the pan heavy in my hands. Rachel and Mark, bloodied, staggered out, calling for help. Sirens wailed, a distant lifeline. I sank to the floor, the memory of Liam's laugh, his real laugh, cutting deeper than any blade. Police dragged Liam away, his parents arriving too. A house of blood and broken furniture, their faces crumbling. In the hospital, Liam stared blankly, remembering nothing, his eyes hollow shells. Doctors whispered of a latent mental fracture, perhaps triggered by the game's hypnotic pull. We never spoke of that night, but it clung to us. A Doritos bag would summon Liam's wild gaze, the glint of his knife, in my dreams. I'm back. In that room, the game's music playing, Liam's shadow looming, whispering my name. The game was gone, but its darkness stayed, a scar on our youth, proof that innocence could shatter in a single night. The road was a lie, a black vein pulsing with secrets that could kill you. Mark and I drove through the night, our car a fragile shield against the countryside's endless dark. We were chasing salvation, trying to mend a marriage cracked by silence, but the hills watched us, their shadows curling like claws. Look out your window, see that flicker in the dark? It's not your imagination. A man stood on the road's edge, limping, his tattered coat flapping like a broken wing. Mark slowed, his kindness a spark in the gloom. Need a lift? He called. The man's smile sliced through the fog, sharp and wrong. Feel your skin prickle. That's the moment you should have run. He climbed in, and the air turned sour, heavy with decay. Our nightmare had just begun. Mark's voice trembled slightly as he spoke, his hands steady on the wheel but his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "We'll be fine, Sarah," he said, more to himself than to me. I nodded, my fingers digging into the armrest, the leather cool under my skin. The night pressed against the windows, a living thing that seemed to breathe with us. What do you do when the world outside feels hungrier than the one inside? The man in the back seat shifted, his coat rustling, the sound too loud in the cars. Confined space. His presence was a weight, pressing down on my chest, making every breath a struggle. I glanced at Mark, his profile sharp in the dashboard's glow, and prayed this drive would heal us, not break us further. But the road had other plans, and the man behind us was its messenger. The man settled in, his presence filling the car like a storm cloud. Have you ever felt someone's gaze crawl over you, peeling back your secrets? He asked simple questions at first, about the weather, our car, but his voice had an edge, like he was testing us. "Nice night for a drive," he said, his eyes glinting in the rearview mirror, piercing and unyielding. I forced a smile, my fingers twisting in my lap, the fabric of my jeans rough under my nails. Mark answered cheerfully, but I saw his knuckles whiten on the wheel, the leather creaking under his grip. Listen to the silence between his words. It's where the danger hides. The man's coat rustled as he shifted, the sound unnaturally loud in the confined space. I caught his reflection, his head tilted, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The road grew darker, fog curling around us like ghostly fingers, swallowing the headlight's beam. The man's questions turned personal, invasive. "How long you two been together? You seem tense." His tone was casual, but his eyes never left me, sharp and unblinking like a predator sizing up its prey. Mark laughed it off, his voice strained. "Long day, that's all," he said. But I felt exposed, like the man was reading the cracks in our marriage, the late-night arguments, the unspoken fears. Imagine a stranger knowing your fears before you speak them. Then he leaned forward, his breath cold against my ear, carrying that same faint stench of decay. "Take me to the old farmhouse off Ridge Road. It's not far." His voice was a command, not a request, each word heavy with intent. Mark glanced at me, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "That's a bit out of our way," he started, his voice faltering. The man cut him off, his tone sharp as a blade. "You'll take me there, now." Feel the weight of those words, The moment your choices slip away. Mark's hands tightened on the wheel, but he turned off the main road, the tires crunching on gravel. The fog thickened, wrapping the car in a suffocating veil. The world beyond reduced to shapes and shadows. I wanted to scream, to tell Mark to stop, but my voice was trapped, caught in the vice of fear. The man sat back, his silence louder than any threat. Picture the fog pressing against the windows, a living thing that knows your secrets. The road to Ridge was narrow, winding, the trees looming like sentinels. I glanced at Mark, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the road. "It'll, be fine," he whispered, but it sounded like a prayer. The man chuckled, low and guttural, as if he heard every doubt we didn't speak. The farmhouse loomed out of the fog, its silhouette jagged against the night, like a beast crouched in wait. What do you do when a place feels like it's waiting? For you, hungry for your fear. Its windows were black voids, its walls peeling like old wounds, the wood warped and gray. The man's breathing grew heavy, almost excited, a sound that turned my stomach. "Stop here," he said, his voice thick with anticipation. "We're going inside." Mark's voice hardened, a spark of defiance. "We're not, but..." The man pulled a gun, its metal glinting in the moonlight, cold and final. "Out of the car, both of you." Feel your heart stop, the world narrowing to that barrel. We stepped into the cold, the ground crunching underfoot, the farmhouse's shadow swallowing us whole. The air was heavy with the musty smell of decay, like the house itself was rotting from within. Inside, the air was thicker, stale, as if the house hadn't breathed in decades. Picture a house that remembers every scream, every betrayal. The floorboards groaned under our weight, each step echoing in the silence. The man forced us to the living room, where a chandelier hung like a skeleton, its crystals long gone, swaying slightly in a breeze I couldn't feel. He paced, the gun steady in his hand, his eyes wild with a feverish gleam. "This house holds pain," he said, his voice trembling, not with fear but with rage. "Betrayal. Tonight you'll help me fix it." See his eyes, burning with a past you didn't create but must answer for. He ranted about his childhood, parents who abandoned him, neighbors who turned away, cruelty that carved him into this monster. His words were a flood, each one a shard of glass cutting deeper. He set out faded photographs in a circle around us, his hands shaking as he placed each one. Imagine those images, a boy alone at a birthday table, a Christmas morning with no gifts, a graduation no one attended. Each photo was a wound, his voice rising with every memory, his pain a living thing in the room. "They left me," he spat, his eyes darting between us. "But you'll make it right." Then he tossed a rope at my feet, its weight heavy in the dust. "Tie him up, Sarah. Show me you understand pain. Feel the rope in your hands, the weight of a choice that could end you." I met Mark's eyes, a silent plan forming in the space between us. I knelt, tying the rope loosely around his wrists, my fingers trembling. "When I say now, push him," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Mark nodded, his face set, his trust in me a lifeline. As I stood, the man bent to check the knots, his gun lowering for a moment. "Now!" I kicked at his gun hand, missing, but Mark surged forward, the rope snapping free. The man fired, the shot grazing the wall, the sound deafening in the confined space. We scrambled, my heart pounding, the room a blur of dust and shadows. "Run!" your body screams, but the house fights you, its walls closing in. The man lunged, his screams raw, animalistic, but we were faster, driven by a primal need to survive. We burst through the door, the fog swallowing us as we ran, his voice fading into the night. We stumbled onto the main road, our lungs burning, the fog parting, to reveal a distant glow. Breathe, you're alive, but the nightmare isn't over. A truck's headlights cut through the mist, its driver stopping as we waved frantically, our voices hoarse. "Help us," I gasped, collapsing into his car, my body trembling. He radioed the police, their sirens a lifeline piercing the dark. Feel the relief, fragile but real, as safety finds you. The man was caught at the farmhouse, still ranting about vengeance, his mind a maze of broken memories, his gun discarded in the dust. Mark and I sat in the truck, our hands clasped, our bodies bruised and bleeding. The scars, his bruised ribs, my cut hands, were nothing compared to the weight of what we'd survived. Hold on to that moment, the certainty that love can outlast horror. The police took our statements, their flashlights sweeping the farmhouse, revealing its decay in stark detail. We learned later that the man had lived there as a child, abandoned by a family that left him to fester in neglect. His pain had twisted into madness, a need to punish the world for his suffering. We drove away as dawn broke, the hills softening under the first light. But even now, I see the farmhouse in my dreams, its windows watching, waiting. The road brought us to the edge of death, but our love carried us back. Feel Mark's hand in yours, the warmth that defies the cold. Yet I can't shake the thought. What other ghosts linger in those hills waiting for the next car to stop? What other houses hide behind the fog, their doors open, their memories hungry? The chandeliers of Mesan glowed like captured stars, casting golden light across tables draped in white linen. The air was thick with the scent of truffle oil and warm bread, a symphony of clinking glasses and murmured conversations weaving through. The dining hall. I moved among the guests, my steps practiced, my smile a mask honed by years as a senior waitress. My name is Lisa, and Mason was my stage, a place where I danced between orders and egos, serving the city's elite with a grace I'd perfected. Tonight, though, the rhythm felt off, a discordant note I couldn't place. The kitchen hummed behind the swinging doors, a chaotic world of steam and shouted commands. I caught glimpses of Benjamin, the new cook, his figure almost ghostly in the chaos. He was quiet, his eyes downcast, his hands moving with a precision that seemed at odds with his timid demeanor. He'd been with us for months, yet I knew little about him, only that he kept to himself, his voice rarely rising above a murmur. "Notice him, Lisa, he's hiding something." The thought flickered unbidden as I watched him slice herbs with surgical care. I shook it off, blaming the long shift, the weight of a Tuesday evening heavier than usual. The patrons were a blur of silk dresses and tailored suits, their laughter sharp, their demands sharper. I weaved through them, balancing trays, my mind, checklist of orders. Yet beneath the routine, a restlessness stirred. The air felt charged, as if the restaurant itself were holding its breath. I paused by a table, catching my reflection in a polished wine glass, a woman in a crisp uniform, her eyes betraying a flicker of unease. "Keep moving, Lisa. It's just another night." But the lie settled uneasily, a shadow creeping across the polished floors. Mesan, with all its elegance, felt like a stage set for something darker, something waiting to unravel. The evening unraveled slowly, like a thread pulled from a seam. Around 8, a murmur rippled through the dining hall, soft at first, then urgent. A woman at table 4 clutched her throat, her face pale, her wine glass trembling in her hand. "I feel unwell," she gasped, her voice barely audible over the hum of conversation. I rushed to her side, my heart quickening, offering water, a napkin, anything to ease her distress. But then another hand rose. Table 7, a man loosening. His tie, sweat beading on his brow. "Stay calm, Lisa. It's just a bad reaction." But the lie crumbled as more voices joined, a chorus of panic rising like a tide. The dining hall, once a haven of elegance, turned chaotic. Glasses tipped over, spilling crimson wine across white tablecloths. Coughs echoed, sharp and ragged, as patrons stumbled to their feet. I wove through the crowd, my apron stained, my mind racing. "Call a doctor," someone shouted, but my eyes were drawn to the kitchen doors, swinging slightly, as if beckoning. I pushed through, the heat of the kitchen hitting me like a wall. The staff was frantic, pots abandoned, orders forgotten. And there, in the corner, was Benjamin. He stood by the prep station, his back to me, his shoulders hunched. His hands moved with eerie calm, pouring a clear liquid from a small vial into a row of plates. The sight stopped me cold, my breath catching. "What are you doing, Lisa? Confront him." I called his name, my voice sharp, but he didn't turn. He didn't even flinch. The vial glinted under the fluorescent lights, its contents shimmering like poison. "Benjamin!" I tried again, stepping closer, but the air around him felt wrong, heavy with intent. His head tilted slightly, as if listening to a voice I couldn't hear, and a low murmur escaped his lips. Words I couldn't catch, but they sent a shiver down my spine. The kitchen noise faded, the world narrowing to Benjamin and that vial. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling, but before I could dial, a scream tore through the restaurant, raw and piercing. It came from the dining hall, a sound that turned my blood to ice. Benjamin's hands paused, the vial empty now, and he turned, his eyes meeting mine. They were red, wild, and empty, of the man I thought I knew. "Run, Lisa, get out now." But my feet were rooted, trapped by the weight of what I'd seen, the truth dawning too late. The scream lingered in the air, a jagged wound in the night. I burst back into the dining hall, my heart pounding, the kitchen's heat replaced by a chill that seeped into my bones. The scene was a nightmare. Tables overturned, plates shattered, patrons scrambling toward the exits. A man lay on the floor, his throat clutched, his face a ghastly blue, his eyes wide with terror. "Help them, Lisa. Do something." But before I could move, Benjamin emerged from the kitchen, his presence a dark tide swallowing the room. In his hand was a cleaver, its blade catching the chandelier's light, glinting with a hunger of its own. His face was a mask of fury, his lips curled into a manic smile. "Poison," he muttered, his voice low, each word a blade. "Just like my son." The words hit me, a puzzle piece I couldn't place. He moved through the crowd, deliberate, his cleaver slashing the air, narrowly missing a woman's face. She screamed, stumbling back, her heels slipping in spilled wine. Chaos erupted, a wave of bodies surging toward the doors, but Benjamin was faster. He crossed the room in a blur, his hands locking the main exits with a finality that echoed like a death knell. "No one leaves," he said, his voice rising. A preacher in a church of horror. He gestured with the cleaver, forcing trembling patrons to pull the heavy drapes, sealing us in darkness. The chandeliers flickered, casting shadows that danced like specters. I ducked behind the bar, my body shaking, my breath shallow. The Benjamin's voice filled the room, a rant that twisted my stomach. "You think this is dinner?" he shouted, his eyes wild, scanning the crowd. "You come here flashing your money, your smiles, but you don't know what's behind the scenes. They poison you, spit in your food, make you sick. Look at you, now choking, dying. They don't care, they never cared." His words were a venom, each one sinking deeper, exposing a wound I hadn't seen. "Hide, Lisa. Don't let him see you." But his gaze swept the room as if he could sense my fear. He approached a young couple, their faces pale, their hands clasped. "You think you're safe?" he sneered. tossing a handful of small blades. "At their feet. Pick them up. Use them on her." The man shook his head, tears streaming, but Benjamin's cleaver hovered, a promise of pain. The room held its breath, the air thick with terror. As I crouched lower, my hands pressed against, my mouth praying for a way out. The bar's polished edge pressed against my back, a cold anchor in the storm of terror. My hands shook, my vision swimming as Benjamin's cleaver carved through the air, each swing a death sentence. The young couple at his feet sobbed, the man shielding his partner, his voice a broken plea. "Please, we didn't do anything," he begged. But Benjamin's response was swift, his blade slicing through the air, silencing them. Blood sprayed, a warm mist that coated the floor, the table, my hands as I pressed them to my face, stifling a scream. "Don't look, Lisa. Don't. Let him hear you." But the sounds, wet, desperate, final, burrowed into my mind, a scar I couldn't unsee. Benjamin turned, his eyes scanning the room, his cleaver dripping crimson. "Line up!" he roared, dragging staff and chefs from their hiding places. They stumbled into a row, their faces pale, their hands raised to their ears as ordered. He moved down the line, his voice a growl, demanding apologies. "Say sorry," he hissed to a young waiter named Paul. Paul stammered, his words choking, and the cleaver struck, severing his hand. His cry rang out, a sound that echoed in my bones. "Move, Lisa. Do something now." But fear held me, captive, like a chain tighter than steel. He continued, relentless. Each refusal met with a swing of his blade. Chefs fell, their aprons stained with blood, their pleas fading into silence. The room was a canvas of suffering, painted in blood and broken glass. Then, his eyes landed on me. "Lisa," he said, his voice calm, a smile twisting his lips. He tossed a phone, its screen glowing in the darkness. "Record this." My hands trembled as I caught it, my stomach lurching. "Obey him, Lisa, buy time." I raised the phone, my finger hovering over the button, capturing his madness. The bodies, the blood, the fear etched into every face in the room. But a spark of defiance flickered in me as I recorded. The phone was live, connected to the world beyond these walls. "Act now, Lisa. Save them." My fingers moved quickly, unnoticed. Opening Twitter, attaching the footage, typing the restaurant's address with a single word. "Help." I hit send, my heart pounding, a fragile hope against the weight of despair. Benjamin didn't see. His focus, on a new victim, his cleaver raised. The room pulsed with the rhythm of his rage, each moment a step closer to oblivion. I kept the phone trained on him, my hands steady despite the terror, my mind racing with the possibility of rescue. The night stretched on, a nightmare without end, but that single act, uploading the truth, kept me alive, a thread of light in the darkness. The restaurant was a crypt, its air thick with the stench of blood and fear. I crouched behind the bar, the phone still in my hands, its screen a faint glow against the darkness. "Hold on, Lisa, help is coming." The hope was fragile, a whisper against the roar of his madness. Then, a sharp crack shattered the silence, a bullet piercing the gap between window and curtain. Benjamin staggered, blood blooming on his chest, his cleaver falling to the floor. Another shot rang out and he collapsed, his body crumpling, his eyes wide with shock. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft cries of survivors. Police swarmed in, their boots heavy on the blood-slick floor. Police swarmed in, their boots heavy on the blood-slick floor. Paramedics rushed to the wounded, their voices a blur of urgency. I sat amidst the chaos, my uniform stained, my hands trembling, as the phone slipped from my grasp. "You're safe now, Lisa. It's over." But the words felt hollow, a lie against the images etched into my mind. The couple's lifeless eyes, the chef's severed hands, Benjamin's twisted grin. The dining hall, once a symbol of elegance, was now a tomb, its shadows whispering of sins. Days later, the truth emerged, each detail like a wound. Benjamin's son had eaten a meal at Masson 2 years ago, a meal that led to a slow, painful death from food poisoning. His grief had festered, turning him into a vessel of vengeance, his pain a mirror for our own. I returned to the site of the restaurant, its doors locked, its windows dark. The echoes of clinking glasses haunted my dreams, each sound a reminder of the horror of that night. I survived, but the scars remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. Benjamin's face, wild with pain and madness, lingered in my thoughts, a ghost I couldn't escape. I prayed that he found his son, somewhere beyond the madness, but for me, healing was a journey just begun, marked by shadows and the weight of what I'd seen. Under a sky as black as ink, I gripped the steering wheel, my headlights carving a frail path through the desolate roads of the town's forgotten edge. I'm Jake, a pizza delivery guy, my bones heavy with exhaustion after a grueling overtime shift. The final order of the night was a strange one, sent to an address so remote it felt like the world had turned its back on it. One large pizza, no toppings specified, cash on delivery, and a cryptic note, "Leave on the dining table." A knot tightened in my chest, a premonition I couldn't shake. As if the darkness itself was watching, waiting, the house emerged from the gloom, its sagging frame and boarded windows like a corpse left to rot in the fields. "This can't be right," I whispered, but the GPS was unwavering. I had arrived at hell's doorstep. This shift had been endless. A coworker's sudden disappearance leaving me to handle a flood of deliveries. My eyes burned, my mind foggy, but I couldn't afford to quit. The house before me was a relic, its peeling walls and broken roof screaming neglect. I parked, my breath clouding in the frigid air, the pizza box a warm anchor in my hands. I knocked, the sound swallowed by the night, hoping to drop it and leave. No one answered. I turned the knob and the door gave way, opening to a hallway steeped in shadow, the stench of dust and decay choking the air. "Pizza delivery! Anyone home?" I called, my voice echoing into nothingness. A faint voice, in my mind, pleaded, "Turn back now." But I stepped inside, blind to the trap I'd entered. The darkness inside was a living thing, devouring the weak beam of my phone's flashlight. The hallway stretched toward a dining room, where an ancient table stood like a silent sentinel. Dusty silverware was arranged with eerie precision, but at the table's heart was a clean, rectangular patch, perfectly sized for the pizza box, as if it had been expected. My pulse hammered. "What is this place?" I muttered, setting the box down. The walls were lined with paintings, their faded landscapes, rolling hills, distant peaks, seeming harmless at first. But as I blinked, they morphed. Faces appeared, their eyes hollow voids, lips curled into unnatural smiles, all staring at me with quiet accusation. I'd heard rumors at the pizza shop about this stretch of town, whispers of a house where drivers vanished, their bikes found abandoned in the weeds. I'd laughed it off, but now those stories clawed at my mind. The air grew colder, the room tightening around me. I hurried to the door, but the knob was frozen, as if sealed by an unseen force. A sour stench rose, not just decay, but raw, rotting meat. My phone showed no signal, its screen flickering despite a full battery. On the wall, a painting now showed a family. A heavy-set man, a tall woman, a little girl, all eyeless, their black sockets pulling at my soul. Something brushed my shoulder, feather-light but deliberate. I spun around, hard in my throat, but the room was empty. Yet I knew I wasn't alone. The air thickened, each breath a struggle, as if the house itself was suffocating me. Whispers slithered through the darkness, a chorus of voices overlapping, their words lost but their intent chilling. I swept my flashlight across the room, but the light only deepened the shadows, making them writhe like living things. A child's laugh, pure yet venomous, echoed from a corner, freezing my blood. "Who's there?" I called, my voice cracking, but the whispers grew louder, now at my ear. The meal must be finished. The temperature plummeted, my breath fogging in the beam. I stumbled to the pizza box, hands trembling as I lifted the lid. Inside wasn't food, but a nightmare. A grotesque mass of raw flesh, molded into a circle, blood seeping onto the cardboard, its stench wrenching my stomach. I gagged, backing away, but the floor pulsed as if heavy footsteps circled me. Shadows on the walls twisted, forming tall, warped figures that moved independently of my light. A painting fell, revealing the eyeless family, their mouths now gaping, in silent screams. The child's laugh returned, closer, behind me. I turned, a cold gust grazing my skin, like an invisible presence rushing past. The whispers became a cacophony, urging me to act, to obey, as the house's hunger pressed against my mind, demanding submission. I pounded the window, but the glass was unyielding, like a wall of iron. The whispers turned to wails. A woman's voice keening in agony, shaking the walls. At the dining room's threshold, a girl materialized, no older than 7, her white dress torn and stained. Her eyes were black hollows, endless voids that gripped my soul. "Will you join us for dinner?" she asked, her voice a chilling blend of innocence and malice. I opened my mouth to refuse, but her head twisted, spinning fully, the same face reappearing on the back, her smile unwavering. Behind her, 2 figures emerged, a heavy-set man in a blood-drenched nightgown, a tall woman, both eyeless, their presence crushing. "You're our guest," the girl said, gliding closer, the air heavy, oppressive. I remembered another late delivery months ago to a house that felt wrong, where the customer's eyes seemed too dark, too empty. This felt like its echo, magnified. The pizza box lay open, the flesh pulsing, alive. "Eat," the girl commanded, her voice slicing through me. I resisted, but an unseen force lifted my hand, pressing the meat to my lips. I bit down, expecting rot but tasted pizza, warm cheese, and sauce. I opened my eyes, the entities were gone, the room silent. I stood alone, a slice in hand, tears burning my cheeks. I fled, the door now swinging free as if the house had released me. My phone rang, my manager's voice sharp. "Jake, 2 hours, where are you?" I stammered. It felt like minutes. Checking the app, I froze. The order was placed from my number, no memory of it. I called my old co-worker, the one who'd quit. His voice shook as he described the same house, the same entities, escaping only after eating. "It lets you go, but it keeps a piece of you," he said. The company blacklisted the address, but I knew it lingered, waiting. At night, I dream of the girl, her hollow eyes filling my vision, her voice clear. "You'll come back for dinner." I see the house, its windows glowing red, the table set for me. I quit night shifts, but the darkness of that place clings, a shadow I can't outrun. The ocean sang a lullaby, but its waves hid a scream. Ben and I stood on the balcony of our Kauai villa, the sunset bleeding gold across the Pacific, our hands entwined, hearts full of new vows. This was our paradise, a secluded haven where palm, fronds danced and the stars promised forever. Notice the salt on your lips? That's the taste of a lie unraveling. The villa's isolation felt romantic at first, but as night fell, the air thickened, heavy with a scent like charred wood and sorrow. Turn around. Feel the shadows shift behind you. A faint rustle came from the jungle beyond, too deliberate to be the wind. Ben laughed it off, but I saw his eyes flicker. Our honeymoon had just begun, and something was already watching. Ben pulled me close, his warmth a shield against the night's chill. "This is our time, Leia," he whispered, his voice soft but firm, anchoring me to the moment. The villa was a dream, teak floors gleaming, walls adorned with driftwood carvings, and a bed draped in white linen that glowed under lantern light. But what if your sanctuary is a stage, every corner hiding a trap? I smiled, trying to shake the unease, but the jungle's silence was unnatural, a held breath waiting to break. We unpacked, sipping coconut water, planning beach walks and lazy mornings. Yet as the stars sharpened overhead, that rustle returned, closer now, like footsteps pacing just beyond the glass. Feel your heart stutter. Something's out there, and it knows your name. The next morning brought a discovery that turned my stomach. On the doorstep lay a jagged seashell, its edges sharp, stained with a dark, sticky smear that wasn't mud. Have you ever held something that feels alive with malice? I dropped it, my hands trembling, the shell's crimson stain glinting in the dawn. Ben frowned, his jaw tight. "Probably just nature," he said, but his eyes scanned the empty beach, the waves lapping too quietly. The villa's isolation, once charming, now felt like a cage. Look beyond the palms. See the jungle watching? That night, the storm rolled in, its growl, shaking the windows, the sky bruised with clouds. The power flickered and our phones showed no signal, the world beyond cut off, leaving us adrift in this paradise-turned-prison. Then, it got worse. Close your eyes. Picture waking to find your secrets exposed. In the living room we found photographs. Us, sleeping in bed, our faces marked with red X's, the camera's angle impossibly close. Scrawled on the back, in shaky script. Too much. Happiness must correct. My breath caught, the room spinning, the air heavy with violation. Feel the ice in your veins, the certainty you're not alone. Ben grabbed a knife from the kitchen, his hand steady but his eyes wild with fear. The storm raged, rain hammering the roof. And then we saw him. A figure at the window, his tiki mask frozen in a grotesque grin, eyes hollow, staring through the glass. See his gaze, ancient and hungry, promising pain. The mask wasn't just wood, it pulsed with a malice that seemed to reach inside me, twisting my thoughts. We backed away, the knife trembling in Ben's hand. What do you do when the monster steps inside your paradise? The door slammed shut, the air thickening with the scent of smoke, acrid and suffocating. The masked man was inside, his laughter unhinged, echoing through the villa like a curse. Run! Your mind screams, but the flames are faster. Fire licked the walls, the heat searing my skin, the crackle of burning wood drowning out the storm. Ben shoved me toward the bathroom, the only room without windows, his voice hoarse. "Stay low," he coughed, pulling his shirt over his nose. Feel the smoke choke you, the world blurring. We filled the bathtub, the water's roar deafening in the enclosed space, but the man's voice cut through, sharp as his machete. "The gods demand it," he howled, his blade glinting in the firelight, his mask cracked but still grinning. Ben found a vent above the sink, his hands shaking as he boosted me up. "Climb, Leia, or you both die." My hand slipped on the metal, the heat pressing against my back, but I crawled, the vent's walls closing in, the psycho's hand grazing my ankle. I kicked, screaming, my voice raw, as Ben tackled him, pinning him against the wall. See Ben's face, fierce with love, buying you time. The man's laughter followed me, a sound that clawed at my sanity, but I pushed forward, emerging outside into the storm's fury. Rain soaked me, the villa ablaze behind, its flames reflecting off the ocean like a beacon of doom. "Keep running. Don't look back." Barefoot, I sprinted along the beach, the sand cold against my feet. The fire's glow a warning etched into the night. My lungs burned, each step driven by the image of Ben, still trapped, fighting for us both. "Don't stop. He needs you." I stumbled upon a fisherman's shack, its lantern flickering like a pulse of hope. "Breathe. You're alive, but Ben's still back there." I pounded on the door, my knuckles raw, my voice breaking. "Help! Someone's trying to kill us." An elderly man opened it, his eyes widening at my drenched, bloodied state. He grabbed a radio, barking rapid Hawaiian into it, his daughter sprinting into the storm to find help. Feel the relief, fragile as glass. But then that laughter, unhinged, drifting down the beach carried by the wind. The psycho was coming, his cracked tiki mask glinting in the rain, his machete raised. See him, a shadow born of madness, unstoppable. The fisherman stood firm, his weathered hands gripping a harpoon, his stance a wall against the night. The psycho lunged, his scream shaking the shack, but the old man was faster, driving the harpoon into his shoulder, pinning him to the wooden frame. The maniac shrieked, his mask slipping, revealing a scarred face twisted with fury. Hear the police sirens, their song cutting through the storm. They flooded the shack, securing the psycho, who laughed and wept, muttering in ancient tongues. I was led back to the villa, now a smoldering ruin, where Ben waited, supported by paramedics, his arm broken, but his eyes alive with relief. Hold him close, feel his heartbeat, the proof you both survived. We learned later that the psycho was a historian, once respected, now broken by the loss of his family's lands to developers. His mind had fractured, his grief twisting into a delusional crusade to cleanse Kauai of outsiders, his tiki mask a symbol of a culture he'd warped into madness. What did he see in those flames, in his shattered gods? Hawaii's beauty is now a scar, a memory of paradise tainted by terror. Ben and I left, our love forged stronger in the fire, but the jungle's whispers follow me. Look into the night. What lingers in those shadows, waiting for the next paradise to burn? The sky burned with streaks of orange and purple, the sun sinking below the horizon as our car hummed along the empty country road. Jenna sat beside me, her fingers tracing patterns on the window, her silence a weight heavier than the miles we'd driven. I'm Gil, and this trip was our last chance to mend what was left of us. Months of arguments, silences, and regrets. The rolling hills stretched endlessly, their shadows long and quiet, promising peace. Breathe, Gil, this is your chance. But the quiet felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. The road was ours alone, no headlights in sight, no hum of another engine. I glanced at Jenna, her face softened by the twilight, and felt a flicker of hope. Then a figure appeared ahead, stumbling on the shoulder, her silhouette jagged against the fading light. A woman, her clothes torn, her arms waving frantically. "Stop, Gil," Jenna said, her voice sharp with concern. I slowed, my instincts warring. Help her or keep driving. "Pull over, Gil, she needs you." I stopped, the gravel crunching under. Our tires, and Jenna rolled down her window. "Please help me," the woman gasped, her voice raw, her face bruised, her eyes wild with fear. "I've been kidnapped, held for a month. I escaped, but they're still out there." Her words hit like a cold wind, stripping away the warmth of the evening. Jenna's hand gripped mine, her nails digging in. "We'll call the police," I said, reaching for my phone, but the woman's gaze darted behind us, her body tensing. "Look back, Gil. See what she sees." I turned, my heart quickening, but the road was empty, the shadows deeper now, swallowing. The last light. Something was wrong, a truth lurking just beyond my sight, waiting to pounce. The woman's eyes widened, her breath hitching as she backed away from our car. Before I could react, a sharp crack split the air, a rock smashing into the windshield, spiderwebbing the glass. "Get out, Gil, now!" My hands fumbled with the keys, the engine roaring, but another rock slammed into the side window, shattering into a glittering rain. Jenna's scream pierced my ears, her hands clawing at the door. "Drive!" she cried, but her voice broke as the woman lunged, grabbing Jenna's arm through the open window, her nails drawing blood. From the woods, across the road, shadows moved. Men, 5 of them, their faces twisted with malice. One, a burly figure with a scar slicing his cheek, yanked my door open, his breath foul with tobacco. "Out!" he barked, his grip iron on my jacket. I swung at him, my fist grazing his jaw, but another man joined, his crowbar swinging at my side window. The glass buckled, then gave way, shards cutting into my arm. "Fight, Gil, protect her." I lunged for the ignition, but the scarred man dragged me half out, his fist slamming into my ribs, stealing my breath. Jenna fought like a wildcat, her nails raking the woman's arm, but 2 more men grabbed her, pulling her from the car. She kicked, her screams raw, but they were stronger, their laughter a sick chorus. "What do you want?" I gasped, my voice breaking as blows rained down, my body curling against the gravel. The scarred man grinned, his teeth yellow in the moonlight. "It's not about what we want, honey pie. It's about what you're gonna give us." His words were a blade, cutting through my hope, revealing the trap we'd fallen into. The air was thick with dust and fear, the road a stage for their violence. I tasted blood, my vision blurring, but Jenna's cries kept me conscious. "Stay alive, Gil, for her." The men circled, their boots crunching, their eyes gleaming with hunger. The woman stood back, her face blank, a puppet in their game. The car, our sanctuary, was a wreck, its headlights flickering, casting grotesque shadows. The night had turned predator, and we were its prey, caught in a nightmare with no end in sight. The scarred man's fist paused mid-swing as headlights cut through the darkness, a truck's horn blaring like a lifeline. The men froze, their eyes darting to the approaching vehicle, uncertainty flickering in their gaze. "Run, Gil, now." I grabbed Jenna's hand, her skin slick with blood, and we bolted, our feet pounding the gravel. Her breath was ragged, her face streaked with tears, but she matched my pace, driven by raw survival. The men shouted, their voices a cacophony of rage, but the truck screeched to a halt, its driver, a grizzled man in a flannel shirt, leaping out. "Get in!" he yelled, his voice rough but steady. We scrambled into the cab, the door slamming shut as the men lunged, their hands clawing at the handles. The driver floored the gas, the truck lurching forward, gravel spraying like shrapnel. I held Jenna close, her body trembling, her sobs muffled against my chest. "You're safe, Gil, for now." But the lie was thin. The rear-view mirror showing 2 men still chasing, their figures shrinking but relentless, their eyes glinting in the taillights. The truck's engine roared, the road curving ahead, but the driver's face was grim. "They're not giving up," he muttered, his hands tight on the wheel. I glanced back, my heart sinking as the men veered into the fields, their shadows merging with the tall grass. The truck couldn't outrun them forever, not on these winding roads. "We need to hide," Jenna whispered, her voice hoarse, her eyes wide with fear. I nodded, scanning the darkness, spotting a faint outline, a barn, its silhouette looming against the night sky. "There," I said, pointing. The driver slowed, his jaw set, and we jumped out, the cold air biting our skin. "I'll call the cops," he said, grabbing his radio, but we didn't wait. We ran, the grass whispering around us, the barn's weathered wood a promise of refuge. "Keep moving, Gil, don't look back." But the crunch of footsteps followed, faint but growing louder, a reminder that our escape was temporary, the chase far from over. The barn loomed closer, its darkness both a shelter and a trap, the night tightening its grip around us. The barn's door creaked as we slipped inside, the air heavy with the scent of old hay and rust. Moonlight filtered through gaps in the wooden planks, casting jagged shadows across the floor. Jenna clung to my arm, her breath shallow, her eyes darting to every corner. "Stay quiet, Gil. They're close." We crouched behind a stack of hay bales, the rough fibers scratching our skin, our bodies pressed together in the suffocating dark. The barn was a maze of forgotten tools and rotting beams, a fragile shield against the men hunting us. Footsteps crunched outside, deliberate, circling the barn like wolves. A low chuckle broke the silence, malicious and chilling. "They went this way," a voice hissed, the scarred man's tone unmistakable. My heart pounded, each beat a drum of fear. Jenna's fingers dug into my palm, her eyes pleading for a plan. "Find something, Gil, anything." I scanned the dim interior, my gaze landing on a rusty pitchfork leaning against the wall, its tines glinting faintly. I crept toward it, my movements slow, the floor creaking beneath me. My hand closed around the handle, its weight a grim promise. The barn door groaned open, a sliver of moonlight revealing two figures. The scarred man stepped inside, his crowbar swinging loosely, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Strike now, Gil, before he sees you." I gripped the pitchfork, my muscles tensing, but Jenna's gasp betrayed us. He turned, his grin widening. "Found you," he snarled, lunging. I swung the pitchfork with all my strength, the tines sinking into his shoulder. He roared, stumbling back, blood seeping through his shirt. The second man charged, his fist aiming for my face, but Jenna leaped, clawing at his back, her nails drawing blood. The struggle was chaos, a blur of pain and desperation. I yanked the pitchfork free, swinging again, catching the second man's arm. He cried out, falling, as Jenna kicked his legs out from under him. "Keep fighting, Gil, don't stop." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, a beacon of hope. The men scrambled to their feet, their resolve faltering as red and blue lights flashed through the gaps in the barn. They bolted, vanishing into the fields, their footsteps fading. We collapsed onto the hay-strewn floor, our bodies bruised, our breaths ragged as police flooded the barn, their voices a lifeline in the nightmare. The barn was a blur of flashing lights and shouted commands as police secured the scene. Jenna and I clung to each other, our bodies shaking, our wounds a map of the night's horror. Paramedics wrapped blankets around us, their voices gentle but distant, unable to pierce the fog of trauma. "You're alive, Gil. You made it." But the words felt empty, a hollow victory against the memory of blood and betrayal. The truck driver stood nearby, his face etched with relief, his radio crackling with police chatter. The police combed the area, their dogs barking in the distance. We gave our statements, each word a weight, our voices trembling as we recounted the trap, the violence, the woman's deceit. The officers' faces hardened, their notes linking our ordeal to a string of carjackings, a gang of predators preying on the unwary. Rest now, Gil, it's over. But rest was a stranger. The night's images burned into my mind. The woman's wild eyes, the crowbar's glint, Jenna's bloodied face. Days later, we returned to the city, the country road a scar. We couldn't revisit. Jenna's hand found mine, her grip tight, a silent vow to heal together. But sleep brought nightmares, the crunch of gravel, the laughter of men, a reminder of how close we'd come to death. The police caught 2 of the men, their faces plastered, on the news, but the woman remained a ghost, her role in the trap a mystery. We survived, but the cost was etched in our souls, a warning to trust no one on the twilight road. The fog parted, and he was there waiting for me. I gripped the steering wheel, my headlights slicing through the midnight haze on a lonely highway, the world reduced to asphalt and shadow. Driving was my escape, a way to quiet the noise of my life. But tonight the road felt different, alive, watching. Stop. Feel the chill on your neck? That's not the wind. A man stood by the roadside, thumb outstretched, his coat tattered, his face hidden in the mist. Look closer. See his eyes glint. They know you. Against my better judgment, I slowed, rolling down the window. Need a lift? I called, my voice unsteady. He nodded, his smile faint but sharp, and slid into the passenger seat, the air turning cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth. My name is Ray, and this was the night I met the dead. The man's presence filled the car, a weight that pressed against my chest, making each breath a conscious effort. What do you do when a stranger feels like a memory you can't place? I glanced at him, his face weathered, his eyes deep set, carrying a weariness that seemed older than time, as if he'd seen centuries pass. Thanks for stopping, he said, his voice low like gravel shifting underfoot, each word lingering in the confined space, echoing in my mind. The highway stretched endlessly before us, its edges swallowed by fog, the world beyond a blur of gray and black, the trees along the shoulder leaning in, their branches like fingers brushing the sky. Picture the road, a ribbon through nowhere whispering secrets. I nodded, focusing on the white lines ahead, but my hands trembled, the leather of the wheel slick under my palms, the night too quiet, the stars hidden behind a veil of mist. Man spoke little at first, his gaze fixed on the road, but his words carried an edge, as if he knew more than he let on, as if the highway itself was his story. Not many drive this stretch at night, he said, his eyes flicking to a rusted sign, its letters faded, ivy clawing at its edges like veins. Have you ever felt a place remember you? There's a cemetery up ahead, he added, his tone casual, but the air grew heavier, the temperature dropping, my breath fogging the windshield, a faint haze that blurred the road. Feel the cold seep into your bones. It's not just the night. I forced a laugh, but it died in my throat, choked by a rising unease, when the radio flickered on, unprompted, cycling through static before settling on an old jazz tune, its notes warped, echoing like a voice from another time, mournful and distant. The man hummed along, his fingers tapping the armrest, the sound unnaturally loud, each tap a pulse that matched my heartbeat. I like this one, he murmured, his voice distant, as if lost in a memory older than the road itself. Listen. Hear the music twist, calling something closer? I reached to turn it off, my fingers brushing the dial, but he stopped me, his hand cold, his grip firm, his skin like ice against mine. Let it play, he said, his eyes meeting mine, sharp and unyielding, a glint in them that wasn't human. The road curved and shadows moved beyond the fog, figures faint, their motions jerky, lining the shoulder like mourners at a funeral, their faces blurred, their hands reaching. I blinked, and they were gone, the highway empty again. But my heart pounded, the world tilting, reality fraying at the edges. See them flickering at the edge of your sight, waiting. They don't like the light, he said softly, as if explaining a simple truth. His words a weight that settled in my gut. The bridge loomed ahead, its iron frame swallowed by fog, a skeleton rising from the mist, its beams rusted, groaning under an unseen weight. What do you do when the road knows your name? The man's voice grew urgent, his eyes fixed on the structure, a feverish intensity in his gaze. Strange things happen here, he said, his words heavy, pulling me into a story I didn't want to hear. Souls linger, tired but unable to rest, caught in moments they can't leave. Hear his voice, a confession from beyond. The car shook, the engine stuttering, the dashboard lights flickering like dying stars, casting jagged shadows across the man's face. The radio surged, spewing numbers and static, a cacophony that clawed at my ears, drowning out thought. Feel the car, alive with something not yours. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, the road narrowing, the fog pressing closer, a living thing that whispered my fears, my doubts, my name. This is where it happened, he said, his voice soft, almost lost in the chaos, but it cut through, clear as a bell. A flat tire, a wagon out of control, and then nothing. See his eyes, hollow with memory, pulling you in. His words painted a scene. A man on his knees, the screech of metal, a life snuffed out. And I saw it, vivid, as if I'd been there. The fog parted and a tree appeared, massive, its branches clawing the sky, its trunk a wall in the road. I slammed the brakes, the car skidding, the tires biting asphalt, stopping inches from the bark. My heart a drumbeat in my chest, my breath ragged. The man opened the door, stepping into the mist, his coat trailing like smoke. "Thank you, Ray," he said, his voice fading, his figure dissolving into the fog. Freeze. He knew my name. I'd never told him, never spoken it, but he knew. And the realization was a blade in my gut, cold and final. The radio fell silent, the fog lifting, but the cold remained, a mark of something I couldn't unsee. I drove home, the highway now, mundane, its asphalt gleaming under a rising moon, the world returning to its familiar shape. Breathe. You're alone. But are you? The silence was deafening, my hands shaking on the wheel, the man's voice echoing in my mind. His name. My name burned into my thoughts like a brand. Hold on to the wheel, the only thing real. I vowed never to take that road at night again, to leave its shadows behind, to lock away the memory of his eyes, his words. But as I parked, my breath caught, my eyes drawn to the ground. Footprints, faint but clear, led from the street to my doorstep, their edges wet as if freshly made, stopping at the threshold, vanishing into nothing. Look down. See them, leading to you? The door was locked, the house empty, but the air felt wrong, heavy, like someone had followed me home, their presence a weight in the dark. I live now, but the road haunts me, its fog creeping into my dreams, the man's eyes watching from the corners, his smile sharp in the moonlight. I avoid that highway, drive in daylight, fill my days with noise, but the silence finds me, and with it, his voice, his cold hand on my shoulder. What waits on that road? Calling your name. I check my locks, close my curtains, but some nights, I feel him, standing just beyond the door, His footprints fresh, his story unfinished, his gaze a promise that I'm never truly alone. The jingle floated through the dusk, a melody that promised ice cream but delivered death. I sat in my rented minivan, parked in the shadow of a quiet lakeside town, my recorder humming softly. As a journalist, I'd chased corruption and scandal, but nothing prepared me for the whispers of missing children, each vanishing after that eerie tune echoed through the streets. Stop. Listen. Hear that music curling around your heart? It's a trap. A mother's tears had led me here, her voice breaking as she spoke of her son, Danny, lured away by a truck that shouldn't exist. Feel the chill on your skin. This town hides a monster. The jingle grew louder, its notes sharp in the twilight. I gripped the wheel, ready to follow. Unaware I was driving into hell. My pulse quickened as the truck's lights flickered in the distance, a ghostly beacon in the gathering dark. What do you do when truth demands you face the abyss? The town was small, its tree-lined streets deceptively peaceful, but the air carried a weight, like the lake itself held secrets too heavy to surface. I'd spent weeks interviewing families, their stories converging on that truck. Its music playing at odd hours, its driver a shadow no one could name. Picture their faces, hollow with loss, pleading for answers. I adjusted my recorder, checked the pepper spray in my pocket, and started the engine. The jingle was my guide, a siren song leading me deeper into a nightmare I couldn't yet see. The streets were empty, the houses dark, their curtains drawn as if the town knew to hide. The lake shimmered under a crescent moon, its surface too, still, reflecting a world that felt wrong. For 5 nights I trailed the truck, its path erratic, weaving through deserted alleys and forgotten roads. Have you ever followed something you knew could destroy you? The driver was a middle-aged man, his cap low, his movements precise but unnatural, like a machine programmed for malice. He stopped in empty lots, idled under broken streetlights, and once I swear he looked right at my van, his eyes glinting like frost. Look into the dark. See that gaze, cold as ice? The truck's jingle was relentless, its notes burrowing into my mind, a melody that felt alive, hungry. I scribbled notes, license plate, routes, times, my hands shaking, the air in the van growing. Colder each night. The town seemed to watch, its silence a warning I ignored, driven by the need to know, to expose the truth hidden in those notes. On the 6th night, the truck led me to an abandoned warehouse on the town's edge. Its walls, rusted windows black as tar. Feel the air thicken, the world holding its breath. I parked behind a crumbling wall, my flashlight dim, my heart pounding. The jingle stopped, replaced by silence so deep it screamed. Step closer. Smell the chemicals, the faint sweetness of vanilla gone wrong. I slipped inside, the door groaning under my touch, the air bitingly cold, my breath fogging in the dark. My flashlight swept across the floor, slick with ice, and caught shapes in the shadows. Not crates, not machines, but figures. Children, frozen, their faces locked in silent screams, posed as if playing, their eyes wide with terror. See them, forever still, a choir of the damned. I gagged, my recorder slipping from numb fingers, the truth too monstrous to hold. Their hands reached out as if begging, their skin pale blue, their clothes dusted with frost. What do you do when the monster sees you first? The driver emerged from the shadows, his face twisted, eyes empty as the frozen children. You wanted a story, he rasped, his voice a blade slicing through the cold. Here it is. Run, your body screams, but fear roots you. He lunged, a chain coated in ice swinging in his hand, his words spilling like madness. A new ice. Age is coming. They'll survive thanks to me. Hear his delusion, a hymn to a frozen world. I fumbled for my pepper spray, my fingers clumsy and sprayed, the mist catching him full in the face. He howled, stumbling back, his chain clattering, giving me a moment to run. His rage echoed, a sound that clawed at my sanity. But I forced my legs to move, the ice slipping underfoot. The warehouse was a labyrinth, its icy paths twisting, treacherous. Keep moving. Don't look back. My flashlight caught crates, shadows, dead ends, the man's roars growing closer. His footsteps heavy on the frozen floor. Feel the cold clawing at your lungs, the panic sharpening every sense. I dodged between rusted machinery, my breath ragged, my mind racing for an escape. A rear exit appeared, hidden by heavy curtains, their fabric stiff with frost. I pushed through, the night air hitting me like freedom, but his chain whistled behind, grazing my shoulder. Don't stop. You're not safe. I sprinted across uneven ground littered with debris, my foot striking a flashlight on the floor. My lifeline. I grabbed it, turning to shine the beam in his eyes, blinding him. He lunged and I kicked, aiming low, feeling a sickening give. He fell and I ran, screaming for help. The town's lights a distant promise. Police lights pierced the dawn, their sirens a hymn of salvation. Breathe. You're alive, but the horror lingers. I'd hacked the truck's GPS during my escape, embedding a distress signal that guided the officers to the warehouse. They found Danny, barely alive, his breath fogging the air, his small body curled in a corner. 6 other children were lost, their frozen forms a testament to the man's cruelty, their faces etched in my mind. See them, forever still, pleading for rescue too late. The driver was apprehended, his rants about preservation fading as he was, led away, his cap discarded in the frost, his eyes still burning with delusion. The warehouse was sealed, its icy secrets exposed, but the cold remained, a weight I carried home. I sat on the cold ground, my body shaking, the weight of what I'd seen crushing me. Hold on to the truth, even when it burns. The story changed. Me, scarred me in ways no byline could heal. I still hear the jingle in quiet moments, its notes twisting through my dreams. I see those children, their eyes wide, their hands reaching. The town moves on, but I can't. Look into the night. What else hides in the melodies we trust, waiting to steal the innocent? I write now, not for fame, but to warn, to shine a light into the dark. The frozen choir sings in my silence, and I'll never stop listening. The glow of my phone screen was my sanctuary, a window into a world where I, Liz, could be more than just a face on a billboard. As a model, Snapchat was my stage, a place to share late-night shoots, makeup tricks, and fleeting smiles with thousands of strangers who felt like friends. Each snap was a brushstroke painting a life of glamour that danced in their notifications. Smile, Liz, they're watching. The likes, the comments, the hearts, they were my applause, a rhythm I craved. I leaned into it, posting snippets of my day, my laughter echoing in digital echoes. Among the sea of followers, Alex stood out. His messages were warm at first, a sprinkle of compliments that felt genuine. You're stunning, Liz. He'd write or love the behind-the-scenes vibe. I'd reply, my fingers quick, my smile real. He was charming, his profile picture showing a boyish grin, his words polite. Engage, Liz, keep them hooked. I did, answering his questions about my work, my life, unaware of the shadow creeping closer. His messages came daily, a steady drip. That felt comforting, like a friend I'd never met. The city lights sparkled outside my apartment, my world bright with possibility. But in the quiet moments, when the screen went dark, a faint unease stirred, a whisper I couldn't name, hinting at a darkness waiting to surface. The city hummed below my apartment, its lights a constellation of dreams. But my phone screen held a different story. One night after a grueling photo shoot, I posted a snap, my face framed by studio lights, my eyes heavy but smiling. "Share, Liz, let them see you." The responses flooded in, but Alex's stood out. His snap mirrored mine, his hair styled like mine, his makeup a haunting echo of my look. "Twinning with Liz," he captioned, a playful note that sent a chill down my spine. I laughed it off, my fingers hesitating over a reply. "Ignore it. Liz, it's just flattery." But the mimicry grew bolder. His snaps arrived like clockwork, each one a distorted reflection. My poses, my outfits, my life. Then came the mask. A snap at dawn, Alex's face hidden behind a grotesque replica of mine. Its features eerily perfect, its eyes hollow. "Isn't it like looking in a mirror?" he wrote. My stomach twisted, the city's glow dimming in my window. "Block him, Liz. Stop this now." I scaled back, my replies curt, my snaps less frequent, hoping he'd fade. But Alex's messages sharpened, his tone insistent, his photos darker, blurry shots of streets that looked too familiar, too close. The line between fan and threat blurred, each ping of my phone a pulse of dread, pulling me deeper into a digital trap I couldn't escape. The nights grew heavier, my apartment a fortress of locked doors and drawn curtains. Each ping of my phone was a jolt, Alex's presence a shadow in my digital world. One morning, a snap arrived, time-stamped in the dark hours. A photo of my building's entrance, the angle low, as if taken from a car across the street. "Can't sleep when I know. You're so close," he wrote. My heart raced, my fingers trembling as I blocked him. "Stay calm, Liz, he can't reach you." But the lie crumbled when a package appeared at my door, its contents a second mask, this time of Alex's face, its smile twisted, a note tucked inside. "Wear this, and we'll be one." I reported him, but the police shrugged, their words hollow without a direct threat. Alone, I felt watched, every sound a potential intruder. Then an email pinged from an unknown account, its tone unmistakably Alex. "You can block me, Liz, but we're meant to be. I worship you. Soon, we'll be together. Check the locks, Liz, he's out there." I paced, my apartment shrinking, the city's hum a mocking lullaby. His obsession was a tide pulling me under, each message a step closer to my doorstep. The digital veil was thinning, his shadow no longer confined to my screen, but lurking in the real world, waiting for its moment. The storm rolled in, its thunder a growl that shook my apartment's walls. I sat on the couch, the TV's flicker a weak distraction, my phone a silent threat on the table. A notification flashed, a snap from an unknown username. "Don't open it, Liz, it's him." But curiosity won and the image loaded. My building's entrance, rain-slicked, the caption chilling. "A storm's coming, Liz. Let's weather it together." My breath caught, my eyes darting to the balcony. A shadow moved, a faint scrape, against the glass. "Look, Liz, face him now." I crept to the balcony door, my heart a drumbeat, and saw him. Alex, his face hidden behind the mask of me, his eyes gleaming through the rain. He climbed over the railing, his movements deliberate, his voice muffled but gleeful. "Enough hiding, Liz. Tonight we're together." "Fight, Liz, don't let him win." I grabbed my phone, hitting record, capturing his madness as I dialed 911. "Why, Alex?" I shouted, my voice steady despite the fear. "Because you're mine," he hissed, lunging at the glass. The storm roared, rain pelting the windows, a chaotic veil. I locked the balcony door, my hands shaking, the phone still recording. Alex pounded the glass, his mask a grotesque mirror, his screams blending with the thunder. I shouted my address to the operator, my voice raw. Then, as lightning flashed, he vanished, melting into the storm. "Stay alert, Liz. He's not gone." An hour later, police found him, drenched and defeated, hiding in the alley. The video went viral, a raw glimpse of his obsession, a beacon of my survival. The courtroom was cold, its silence a stark contrast to the storm of that night. Alex sat handcuffed, his eyes hollow, his boyish charm replaced by defeat. My video, played on repeat, sealed his fate. Irrefutable proof of his obsession. Stand tall, Liz, you won. But victory tasted bitter, the weight of his gaze a ghost in my mind. He was sentenced, his shadow locked away, but my apartment felt no safer, its walls echoing his threats. The video spread, a viral cry that sparked debates, a warning of digital dangers. I spoke out, my voice raw, sharing my story to protect others. Each word a step toward healing. "Keep going, Liz, you're stronger now." But sleep brought his face, the mask, the rain, a reminder of how close I'd come to losing myself. My Snapchat, once a joy, was a relic of fear. Its light dimmed. I survived. But the fight against such darkness continued. My story a beacon for those trapped in the shadows. That Tuesday evening, Maison glowed like a jewel, its chandelier light dancing on tables draped in white silk. I'm Lisa, a seasoned waitress, weaving through a sea of guests in suits and gowns, balancing plates of fragrant dishes. The clink of cutlery blended with laughter, a symphony of opulence. But beneath the polished surface, a cold premonition stirred, as if darkness lurked behind the velvet curtains. Maison was the city's pride, where the elite flaunted power. Yet tonight I felt unseen eyes watching, waiting for the moment to shatter it all. I'd worked at Maison for 3 years, knowing every corner of the dining hall, from the scent of fine wine to the murmur of million-dollar deals. Tonight was busier than usual, guests flooding in, keeping me spinning between tables. Benjamin, the new chef, stayed quiet in the kitchen, barely speaking, nodding curtly at orders. He was a shadow, unremarkable, but I paid no mind. Maison attracted odd souls. As I delivered a seared salmon to table 7, a practiced smile on my lips, I never imagined that within hours, this place would become a slaughterhouse. The air shifted, a melody gone off key. At a corner table, 4 guests began, coughing, faces flushed, hands clutching chests. I froze, a soup tureen trembling in my grip. "Is something wrong?" I asked, but they only muttered, sweat beading. Then another table and another, coughing spreading, mingled with cries for help. Guests rose, chairs toppling, wine glasses shattering, their red contents pooling like blood. My heart raced, unease turning real. I rushed to the kitchen to alert the manager, but the sight stopped me cold. Benjamin stood with his back to me, muttering as if praying. On the counter, he poured a murky liquid from a small vial into prepared dishes. "Benjamin, what are you doing?" I called, voice shaking. He didn't respond, his hands trembling as he worked. A sharp chemical stench hit me, alien to the usual herbs. I recalled a rumor, years old, about a chef fired from Maison for tainting food, dismissed as gossip. Now, watching Benjamin, I knew something horrific was unfolding. He turned, eyes bloodshot, a twisted smile on his face. No longer the man I'd known. Chaos erupted. A scream pierced the dining room, sharp as a blade. I ran out, seeing a man clutching his throat, face purple, collapsing. Benjamin emerged from the kitchen, a cleaver in hand, its blade gleaming under the lights. "Poison like my son," he muttered, voice flat, like a chant. He advanced on a table, swinging the cleaver, narrowly missing a screaming woman. Guests fled, knocking over tables, but Benjamin was faster. He reached the main doors, locking them, then pointed the blade at the crowd, ordering the curtains drawn, sealing us in. I hid behind the bar, heart pounding, watching him approach a young couple. "You think this is just dinner?" he roared, voice breaking. "They fool you. Chefs spit in your food, mix poison." He gestured at the vomiting guests, eyes wild. I remembered Benjamin's quiet days, staring out the kitchen window as if waiting. Now I saw his pain had turned to madness. He tossed knives at the couple's feet, commanding, "Cut her throat." The man refused, and Benjamin laughed, a sound devoid of humanity, chilling my blood. Benjamin stepped over bodies, blood pooling on the carpet, painting a nightmare. He summoned the staff, forcing us into a line, hands over ears. "Say sorry," he demanded, but when one trembled, he slashed the cleaver into his hand. Blood sprayed, a pained groan echoing. He moved on, relentless, each strike deliberate. I crouched behind the bar, hands shaking as he threw a phone at me. "Record, Lisa," he said, voice eerily calm. I held it, pretending to comply, but my fingers opened Twitter, posting a clip with the restaurant's address and one word: help. Each swing of his blade tore at my mind. He rambled about his son, killed by a meal here. I recalled a night, seeing him clutch a child's photo, eyes wet. That grief had birthed a monster. Then a gunshot rang out, then another. Benjamin fell, blood seeping from his chest, eyes still burning. Snipers had fired through a curtain gap. Silence descended, broken by survivors' sobs. I dropped the phone, hands trembling, staring at the blood-soaked floor, unable to believe I'd survived. Police stormed in, their lights illuminating the carnage. I sat amid the wreckage, uniform stained, hands shaking. Later, I learned the truth. Benjamin's son 7 died from food poisoning at Mason 2 years ago. He'd watched the boy waste away, each day a torment until his heart stopped. That loss devoured him, forging a vengeful killer. Mason closed, but that night's memory lingered. Every clink of cutlery jolted me, echoing Benjamin's blade. In dreams, he stood in Mason's kitchen, eyes red, whispering, "They took my boy." I survived, but the scar in my soul never healed, a reminder that even the grandest places hide darkness. The screen flickered, and the night answered back. It was 2010, and Abdul and I, two 13-year-olds hungry for thrills, huddled in my dimly lit room, the Doritos horror game loading on my old PC. Our new house, a creaky rental next to a graveyard, felt alive with secrets, its windows framing tombstones that glowed under the moon. Pause. Feel the air grow heavy? That's not just a game starting. My parents were away, leaving us free to break their rules. The game's eerie glow our only light. Look at the shadows on your wall. Are they moving? Abdul's grin hit his nerves, but I felt it. A chill that wasn't from the open window. We clicked start, unaware we were inviting something ancient into our world. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the game's logo pulsing like a heartbeat. What do you do when a game knows more than it should? Abdul leaned closer, his breath quick. The room's silence broken only by the PC's hum. The house was cheap, a necessity after. Dad's business faltered, but its closeness to the graveyard unnerved me. At night I'd heard whispers, faint like voices carried on the wind. Picture the tombstones outside, their names worn, their stories restless. We'd laughed off the rumors about the Doritos game, a marketing stunt pulled for being too scary. But as the opening cutscene played, a haunted hotel with flickering lights, I felt the house shift, as if it was listening. Abdul nudged me. "Let's do this, Brian," he said. But his eyes flicked to the window where the graveyard waited, its mist curling like fingers. The game pulled us in, its corridors dark, its music a low drone that crawled under my skin. Have you ever felt a screen watch you back? We navigated a virtual hotel, solving puzzles, jumping at every shadow, our reflections ghostly in the monitor's glow. Abdul's laughter was forced, his hands shaky on the mouse. "Listen." Hear the silence deepen. Then a sharp tap came from the window like knuckles on glass. We froze. The game paused, the room too quiet, the air thick with a tension we couldn't name. "Just a branch," I muttered, my voice thin, but the nearest tree was yards away. "Look outside. See the mist curling over the graves?" We peered. Into the dark, the graveyard stones faint through the fog, their shapes blurred but unmoving. Shaking, Abdul hit play, but I felt eyes on us, not from the game but from beyond the glass. The tasks grew stranger, too personal, as if the game knew our fears. One puzzle had us sing a lullaby to calm a spectral child, and as we hesitated, a child's laughter echoed through the house, high and wrong, a sound that didn't belong. Feel your pulse race, the line between game and reality blurring. We searched the room, our flashlights cutting through the dark, finding nothing, no toys, no shadows, just the walls staring back. The air grew colder, the scent of damp earth seeping through the cracks, heavy with the promise of something buried. The game screen flashed its next challenge. Enter room 366. My stomach dropped. Our house number, 366, scrawled on the mailbox outside. See the screen? Its numbers glowing like eyes daring you? Abdul's face paled, his voice barely a whisper. "This isn't right, Brian." But the game held us, its pull magnetic, the house complicit, its silence a trap we couldn't escape. "What do you do when the game plays you?" The lights flickered, then died, plunging the room into darkness. The PC's glow our only anchor, its light casting jagged patterns on the walls. "Run!" your body screams. But where? The air turned frigid, my breath fogging, the smell of soil and decay so thick I could taste it. A low hum rose, not from the speakers but from the direction of the graveyard, a mournful sound that vibrated in my chest. Hear it, a voice that shouldn't wake. The game resumed, unpaused, its screen showing room 366, a figure moving inside, a shadow with eyes like voids, its form mirroring a character we'd seen in the game but alive, aware. Abdul grabbed my arm, his voice breaking. "Brian, what is that?" His eyes were wide, searching mine for reason, but I had none. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, sounded from the hallway, approaching, each step a weight that shook the floor. Feel the house alive with malice, its walls tightening. We bolted for the door, but it slammed shut, the lock turning without a key. The PC screeched, the words "Do not look behind you" pulsing on the screen. My heart pounded, a drumbeat drowning. Outthought. The figure appeared in the doorway, tall and fluid, its face a blur like smoke caught in moonlight. Its eyes locked on us, unblinking, hungry. See it, the shadow that knows your fear. We backed away, tripping over cords, the air crackling with static. The figure moved closer, its presence a weight crushing my lungs. Abdul screamed, a sound raw and desperate as we scrambled for the back door, finding it sealed, the house a prison. We retreated to the kitchen, grabbing knives, their blades cold in our hands. Fight, or you're lost. The figure's shadow loomed, its form flickering, as if drawn from the game's code into our world. The PC's screen glowed brighter, the jingle from the game looping distorted a mocking chant. We pressed against the door, our breaths ragged, the figure's footsteps echoing closer, its voice a low rasp. "You opened the door," it hissed, words that weren't in the game, words that felt ancient, final. Hear it, the promise of something that claims you. The door groaned under our weight, the wood splintering, but it held, buying us moments. The jingle grew deafening, the air so cold it burned, and I knew we couldn't outrun this, not in the dark. Dawn's light crept through the curtains, pale and fragile, and the pounding stopped, the air stilling. Breathe. You're alive, but the night clings to you. The figure was gone, the jingle silent, the PC screen frozen on room 366. Its glow dim. Abdul and I stood, trembling, our knives clattering to the floor. The house quiet, the graveyard outside serene, its stones untouched by the fog. Look at the tombstones. Are they closer now? We didn't speak of it, didn't tell my parents, the fear too raw, too unreal to voice. The game was uninstalled, the PC hidden away, its cables tangled like a warning. We cleaned the room, our hands shaking, as if erasing the evidence could erase the night. Months later, Dad's new contract moved us to a new city, a house with no graves in sight. Hold on to that relief, the promise of safety. But I still see the figure in my dreams, its eyes like voids, its shadow stretching across my sleep. I hear the jingle, faint but persistent, curling through quiet moments. Abdul and I never spoke of it again, our friendship sealed by a shared scar, a secret we buried. Never play that game. Don't wake what waits. The graveyard's echo follows. Me, a reminder that some doors once opened never fully close, their shadows hungry for more. The night was a velvet curtain, the moon a faint sliver casting feeble light over the narrow country road. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles pale, the hum of my car's engine a soft lullaby against the silence. My name is Emma, a real estate agent whose days were filled with open houses and contracts. But nights like this were my escape, a chance to breathe away from the city's clamor. The road stretched endlessly, flanked by dense woods, their shadows swaying like whispers in the dark. Keep driving, Emma. You're almost home. The thought was a comfort, a promise of safety just beyond the next curve. The solitude was my refuge, the only sound the tires on asphalt, until a glint caught my eye. A silver sedan ahead, its brake lights flaring as it stopped abruptly. "Slow down, Emma, watch out." I slammed on the brakes, my heart lurching, the car skidding to a halt inches from its bumper. The sedan was still, no driver in sight, the road empty around us. I exhaled, my hands trembling, ready to honk, when the driver's door creaked open. A figure stepped out, cloaked in black, his face obscured, his gaze fixed on me. "Get ready, Emma, something's wrong." From the woods, two more shadows emerged, their silhouettes jagged, each holding a crowbar that glinted in the moonlight. The air thickened, the night no longer a refuge but a trap, its jaws closing around me. The scarred man's crowbar gleamed, a cruel promise in the moonlight as he lunged at my window. "Get out!" he roared, his voice a guttural snarl, his fist pounding the glass. The impact sent cracked spiderwebbing across the surface, each fracture a countdown to disaster. "Move, Emma, get away." My hands fumbled for the keys, the engine coughing but refusing to start. Its sputter a betrayal. Another blow landed, the window shattering, shards slicing my cheek, warm blood trickling down my face. His hand shot through, grabbing my hair, yanking with a force that tore a cry from my throat. I clawed at his arm, my nails digging into his skin, but he was stronger, pulling me halfway out of the car. My body scraped against the jagged window frame, pain searing through my side. "Fight, Emma, don't give up." I kicked, my foot connecting with his shin, earning a grunt, but another man joined, his crowbar swinging at my arm. The blow landed, sharp crack of pain that blurred my vision. "You're not going anywhere," he hissed, his breath sour, his eyes glinting with malice. The third man circled, his laughter a low, sickening hum, his crowbar tapping the car's hood like a predator toying with prey. The road was a stage for their violence, the woods a silent witness. I tasted blood, my body screaming, but I reached for the ignition again, desperation fueling my trembling hands. The engine sputtered, then died, its silence a death knell. "Scream, Emma, someone might hear." I opened my mouth, but the scarred man's fist slammed into my jaw, silencing me, my world tilting. The night was no longer mine, its shadows their domain, my car a broken shell in their cruel game. Pain was a living thing, clawing at my body as I writhed under the scarred man's grip. His weight pinned me to the gravel, his breath hot against my neck, his laughter a blade in my ears. "Break free, Emma, now." My fingers scrabbled in my pocket, closing around the jagged edge of my car keys. With a surge of desperation, I swung, the metal raking across his cheek, drawing blood. He howled, his grip loosening, and I scrambled free, my legs pumping, the road a blur beneath me. The woods loomed, their darkness a promise of cover, but the second man was faster, his boots pounding behind me. "Run, Emma, don't stop." I dove into the underbrush, branches tearing at my skin, my breath ragged. The third man's voice echoed a taunting call. "You can't hide." My heart hammered, each beat a plea for survival. I tripped, my hands sinking into the cold earth, but I crawled, my body screaming until a hand clamped my ankle, dragging me back. "Fight, Emma, you're not done." I twisted, kicking at the second man's face, my heel connecting with his nose, a sickening crunch. He staggered, cursing, but the scarred man was there, his crowbar raised, his eyes wild. "You're gonna pay," he snarled, slamming me to the ground. My vision swam, pain exploding in my ribs, but my hand found a rock, its edges sharp. "Strike, Emma, make it count." I swung, the stone grazing his temple, buying me a moment. I stumbled to my feet, the road ahead a faint hope, but their footsteps were relentless, closing in. The night a tightening noose around my throat. The road was a battleground, my body a map of bruises and blood. The scarred man loomed over me, his crowbar glinting, his grin a promise of pain. "Don't give up, Emma, fight." My hand tightened around the rock, its weight a lifeline. I swung again, the stone cracking against his jaw, sending him reeling. The second man lunged, his fist grazing my shoulder, but I rolled, my body screaming, and scrambled toward the road. "Get up, Emma, keep moving." The third man blocked my path, his eyes gleaming, his crowbar raised. I dove under his swing, my fingers clawing the gravel, finding another stone. "Hit him, Emma, now!" I threw it, the rock striking his chest, buying me seconds. I stumbled into the road, my legs buckling, my vision blurred with tears. Headlights pierced the darkness, a car approaching, its horn a desperate cry. "Stand, Emma, make them see you." I staggered to the center, waving my arms, my voice raw as I shouted for help. The car screeched to a halt, inches from me. The driver, a middle-aged man with wide eyes, jumping out. The attackers froze, their resolve crumbling under the glare of headlights. They turned, melting into the woods, their footsteps fading. "You're safe, Emma, breathe." I collapsed into the driver's arms, my body shaking, my mind reeling. Police sirens wailed in the distance, their lights a beacon in the night as the driver held me, his voice a lifeline pulling me back from the abyss. The hospital room was sterile, its white walls a stark contrast to the chaos of that night. I sat on the bed, bandages tight around my ribs, my face a patchwork of bruises. "You're alive, Emma. You made it." But the words were hollow, the road's shadows lingering in my mind, each memory a fresh wound. The police took my statement, their voices gentle, their notebooks filling with my trembling words. They linked the attack to a gang of carjackers, predators who lured drivers with staged accidents, their faces now hunted on wanted posters. The driver who saved me visited, his eyes kind but haunted, his hands still shaking from the ordeal. "You were brave," he said. But I felt no bravery, only fear that clung like damp cloth. "Heal, Emma, you have to try." Nights brought nightmares, the crowbar's glint, the scarred man's grin, the road's endless dark. I avoided driving, the hum of an engine a trigger, my world shrinking to safe corners. The news reported 2 arrests, but the third man remained a ghost, a specter in my sleep. My survival was a fragile victory, the cost etched in my soul, a warning to never trust, the quiet of a lonely road. The shadows in the dining hall pulsed, as if they had a heartbeat. I stood alone in La Lanterna, a Chicago relic of a restaurant, its chandeliers dim, the air thick with the scent of wax and forgotten feasts. My 3rd week as a waiter, and I'd drawn the graveyard shift, cleaning tables, stacking chairs, trapped in silence. Pause. Feel the room watching you? It sees everything. I called Jenna, my girlfriend, her face lighting up my phone, a lifeline in the dark. "Look around. Are you truly alone?" The empty tables stretched into the gloom, their linens ghostly under candlelight, but a faint hum like voices behind a wall stirred the air. I laughed it off, but my skin prickled, my pulse quickening. Something in La Lanterna was awake, and it knew I was here. I shifted a chair, its legs scraping the hardwood, the sound too loud in the stillness, echoing like a warning. What do you do when a place feels alive with secrets? La Lanterna was old, its walls lined with vintage mirrors, their surfaces fogged, reflecting a dining hall that seemed to shimmer at the edges, as if caught between times. Jenna's voice crackled through the phone, warm but concerned, her eyes searching mine. "You look tired, Louis," she said, her smile fading as I panned the camera across the room, showing the velvet drapes, the marble counters, the chandeliers casting fractured light. Picture her eyes wide with worry, seeing something you can't. The restaurant was a maze of elegance, its beauty a mask, but tonight, it felt like a stage, its shadows actors waiting for their cue, their presence a weight I couldn't shake. I joked about ghosts, my voice hollow, but the hum grew louder, a chorus of whispers just beyond my hearing, and I wondered if Jenna saw what I couldn't name. The call ended, and the silence rushed in, heavier, like a weight pressing against my chest, making each breath a struggle. Have you ever felt a room hold its breath? I moved to the kitchen, the stainless steel gleaming under fluorescent lights, but the air turned colder, my breath fogging in the space, the scent of old wine and rust lingering, sharp and sour. Sniff the air, smell the past creeping closer. A stove flickered on, its blue flames dancing unlit by any hand, their glow casting jagged shadows on the tiles. My heart skipped, a jolt that shook me, and I turned it off. My fingers trembling, the metal hot under my touch, burning like a warning. Feel the heat, the message it carries. I backed into the dining hall, my eyes darting, and froze. Chairs had shifted, their angles wrong, as if someone had sat and left, their absence a presence I couldn't ignore, their intent a chill down my spine. Whispers grew distinct, fragments of voices, angry, pleading, desperate, swirling around me, their words lost but their pain sharp, cutting through the air like glass. Hear them, calling from a time you don't know. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to record, but the camera caught a shadow, tall and blurred, darting behind a mirror, its movement too quick, too deliberate. My throat tightened, my pulse a drumbeat in my ears, the room shrinking, the mirrors reflecting. Not me, but movement. Figures faint, their faces smudged, their eyes like voids watching, waiting. See them? Their gaze pulling you in? I backed away, my shoes squeaking on the polished floor, my breath shallow, and tried the front door, my hands slick with sweat. But it was locked, the bolt unmoving, the key useless, the restaurant a trap, sealed by something beyond my understanding, its walls alive with intent. What do you do when the shadows reach for you? The bar exploded into chaos, bottles lifting from shelves, hovering in the air, then shattering against the walls, their liquor spilling like blood, pooling on the floor, the air sharp with alcohol and fear, a stench that burned my nose. Run, your body screams, but the dark is faster. I ducked behind the counter, glass raining down, the shards glinting like stars. The whispers now shouts, a cacophony of rage and loss, voices overlapping, men cursing, women weeping, a child's cry, cut short. Hear their fury, a storm from another era. A figure materialized, its form shifting, tall then small, a man in a fedora, then a woman in a torn dress, their eyes hollow, their hands reaching, cold as frost against my skin, their touch a burn that lingered, a claim I couldn't escape. The air thickened, my ears popping, the pressure crushing, as if the restaurant itself was squeezing me, its walls pulsing, its floors trembling. Feel the weight, the house claiming you. I grabbed a chair, my hands shaking, and hurled it at a window, the glass resisting, bending, then shattering. The night air rushing in, cool and sharp, a lifeline in the chaos. I climbed through, the jagged edges cutting my palms, blood warm and slick. But as I pulled myself out, a hand, icy, unyielding, gripped my shoulder, its touch burning, pulling me back, its strength a force I couldn't fight. Fight, or you're theirs. I twisted free, screaming, the glass slicing deeper, and stumbled into the street. The restaurant's lights flickering behind me, its shadows pulsing, alive, their whispers following, unwilling to let me go. The streetlights burned bright, there, glow a shield against the night, casting long shadows that danced but didn't reach me. Breathe. You're free, but the shadows linger. I ran, my hands bleeding, my heart pounding, my lungs burning, until I reached the safety of the city's hum, its noise drowning out the restaurant's whispers, its life a barrier against the dark. Morning brought me back, driven by a need to understand, my steps heavy, my body aching as I faced La Lanterna's facade, now silent, its elegance a mask hiding its truth. Look at its windows. Do they watch you still? The owner, an elderly man with eyes like faded photographs, called me to his office, his voice low, trembling, as he spoke of the restaurant's past, a speakeasy in the 1920s. Torn apart by a gang shootout, its blood soaked into the floors, its dead never leaving, their anger a curse that clung to the walls. I quit that day, the memory of those shadows too raw, their touch a scar I carry, a cold that never fades. Hold, onto the light, the promise of escape. I found new work, new routines, but at night when silence falls, I feel them. Their whispers in my ears, their hands brushing my skin, their eyes watching from the dark. What lives in those walls, waiting for the next soul to claim? La Lanterna stands, a monument to its dead, its chandeliers dim, its mirrors holding faces I can't unsee. I avoid its street, close my eyes against the night, but the speakeasy's curse follows me, a reminder that some places never let you go, their hunger eternal. The key turned in the lock, but I wasn't the one holding it. I sat alone in my apartment, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across the walls, my textbooks a fortress against the chaos of my recent breakup with Jenna. Our love had been a storm, passionate, then poisonous, ending with her hurling a scissor at my face. Freeze, feel the air shift? Someone's watching. The night was quiet, too quiet, the hum of the fridge my only company. Look at your door, is it still locked? A faint shuffle broke the silence like leaves brushing the floor, but my windows were shut. I shook it off, blaming exhaustion, but deep down I knew something was wrong. Jenna wasn't gone. She was here, and she wanted me to pay. I rubbed my eyes, the words on my screen blurring, my mind heavy with the weight of the past week. What do you do when your safe haven feels like a cage? The apartment was small, a student's refuge, its walls papered with faded stripes, the air stale with coffee and regret. Jenna's memory lingered, her laughter, her screams, the way she'd clung to me even as I pulled away. Picture her eyes, wild with hurt, promising you'll never escape. I reached for my water bottle, the plastic cool in my hand, and took a sip, the taste oddly bitter, metallic. Shaking my head, I focused on my notes, determined to bury her in the past. But the shuffle returned, closer now, a deliberate step in the hallway beyond my door. My pulse quickened, the room shrinking, the shadows stretching toward me like fingers. Feel your heart race. She's closer than you think. The door creaked open, and there she was. Jenna, her silhouette sharp against the dim hallway light, her presence a violation of the space I'd fought to reclaim. Have you ever seen someone you love become a stranger? Her smile was wrong, twisted, her eyes gleaming with a feverish intensity that made my skin crawl, as if she saw through me to something broken inside. "Miss me, Brian?" she purred, stepping inside, a spare key dangling from her fingers, its metal glinting in the lamplight. "See it? A betrayal you never saw coming?" My voice caught, my body frozen, my mind racing for an explanation. "Jenna, how? Why are you here?" I stammered, the room tilting, my limbs growing heavy, my tongue thick. She laughed, a sound like glass breaking, sharp and final, and held up an empty vial, its glass catching the light. "You drank my little gift," she said, her voice soft, but venomous, a promise of pain. Feel the world spin, your control slipping away. My vision blurred, colors bleeding into each other, my legs buckling as I sank to the floor, the carpet rough against my palms, scratching like sandpaper. Jenna knelt beside me, her breath hot on my cheek, her fingers tracing my jaw with a tenderness that felt like a lie. "We need to talk, Brian," she whispered, her words a blade slicing through the fog in my mind. "About respect, about loyalty." Hear her voice, a lullaby laced with rage. She dragged me to a chair, her strength unnatural, her hands steady as she tied my wrists with rope that bit into my skin, the fibers burning with every twist. The apartment, once my sanctuary, was now a prison, the walls closing in, the air thick with her perfume. Sweet, suffocating, a ghost of the love we'd shared. "You never saw me," she hissed, her eyes burning with a fire I didn't recognize, her face inches from mine. "But you will now. What do you do when love becomes a weapon?" Jenna paced before me, a knife glinting in her hand, its edge catching the lamplight, a sliver of silver promising pain. "You broke me, Brian," she said, her voice trembling, a storm of hurt and fury, her words cutting deeper than any blade. "Fight!" Your mind screams, but the ropes hold tight. She lit a cigarette, the flame dancing in her eyes, a tiny sun in the darkness of her gaze, and pressed it to my neck, the pain searing, white hot, my scream muffled by the scarf she'd stuffed. In my mouth, its fabric choking me. Feel the burn, the world narrowing to agony. She carved shallow lines into my skin, each cut precise, a token of my lies. Her words a chant of betrayal, her breath hot and uneven. "You'll listen now," she spat, her face inches from mine, her tears mixing with the blood trickling down my arm, warm and sticky. Her madness spiraled, her voice rising, a crescendo of pain and obsession. "We'll be together forever," she said, pulling a lighter from her pocket, its flame licking the air, then my sleeve, the fabric smoldering, the heat creeping toward my skin. "See the fire?" Her love turned to ash. I pleaded, my voice hoarse, the scarf falling loose. "Jenna, this isn't you. We can fix this." A flicker of doubt crossed her face, a glimpse of the girl I'd loved under the moonlight, her laughter, soft and free, but it vanished, her resolve hardening like stone. "It's too late," she whispered, her knife poised above my chest, its tip gleaming. "Talk or you're gone." I spoke of our first date, her smile under the stars, the way she'd held my hand, my words a lifeline thrown into the tempest of her mind. Her hand trembled, the knife wavering, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, a crack in her armor. She stepped back, her voice breaking. "I just wanted you to see me," she said, the lighter slipping from her fingers, the flame dying on the floor. "Now." I lunged, the chair tipping, the ropes loosening under my struggle, and tackled her, my body heavy but driven by desperation. We hit the floor, her nails clawing at my arms, her screams raw, animalistic. But I held her down, my breath ragged, my vision swimming. "Keep her there. You're almost free." I grabbed the knife, throwing it across the room, its blade skittering into the shadows, and stumbled to my phone, my fingers numb as I dialed 911, the operator's voice a distant anchor. "Breathe. You're alive." But her shadow lingers. Jenna sobbed, curled on the floor, her rage spent, her eyes hollow, a shell of the woman I'd known. "I just wanted us," she whispered, a broken plea that cut deeper than her knife. The police arrived, their lights flooding the apartment, painting the walls red and blue, their voices a blur as they handcuffed her, leading her away. Hold on to the silence, the weight of what you've survived. I was treated at the hospital, my burns bandaged, my cuts stitched, the antiseptic sharp in my nose, but the real wounds were deeper, carved into my mind, a map of fear and betrayal I couldn't erase. Jenna was sent to therapy, her madness a wound no one saw until it bled, a tragedy hidden behind her smile. See her face, lost in a storm you couldn't save her from. I moved on, new locks, new routines, but the apartment's walls still whisper her name in my dreams, her knife glinting in the dark, her eyes watching from the corners. What breaks when love turns to hate, and who pays the price? I survived, that night, but some part of me stayed in that chair, bound by her rage. I study, I live, but the shadows move, and I wonder, will she ever truly let me go? The night was a quiet cocoon, wrapping my small apartment in a deceptive calm. I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop casting soft shadows across the room, my fingers dancing over code as I debugged a project. I'm Megan, a cybersecurity student, my world a maze of algorithms and firewalls. a place where I felt in control. The city outside hummed faintly, its lights a distant pulse through my curtains. Focus, Megan, you're almost done. The thought was a rhythm steadying my mind, until a faint sound broke it, a subtle click like a camera shutter echoing from the corner of the living room. My breath caught, my hands freezing on the keyboard. Listen, Megan, it's nothing, but the silence that followed was heavy, pressing against my skin. I scanned the room, my eyes darting to the shelves, the couch, the darkened hallway. Nothing moved, yet the air felt charged, as if unseen eyes were watching. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, a link glowing on the screen. Don't click, Megan, don't. Curiosity overpowered fear, and I opened it, my heart sinking as a live stream loaded. A view of my living room, my own silhouette at the desk, and a figure in the bedroom doorway, his voice a chilling whisper. Welcome to your nightmare, Megan. The live stream flickered, its grainy feed a window into my violation. My hands shook as I dropped the phone, its screen still glowing with my living room. The intruder's shadow gone, but his presence a weight in the air. Search, Megan. Find the camera. I moved through the apartment, my footsteps muffled, my eyes scanning every corner. In the kitchen, a knife lay on the counter, its blade gleaming, not mine, its edge stained with something dark. My stomach churned, bile rising as I backed away, my hand brushing a lock of hair tied with string, placed deliberately on the table. Run, Megan, get out now. The phone buzzed again. Another message. You can't hide, Megan. I'm everywhere. His voice echoed in my mind, a twisted melody as the screen flashed with a new warning. Call the police and your phone explodes. Stay calm, Megan. Think. I gripped the knife, its weight cold, my heart pounding. The apartment, once my sanctuary, was a labyrinth of threats, each shadow a potential trap. I checked the locks, the windows. My breath shallow, but the silence was a lie, broken by the hum of my laptop, its camera light flickering on, unprompted. His presence was digital, physical, inescapable, a predator weaving through my life's wires, tightening his grip with each passing second. The apartment was a cage, its walls closing in with each heartbeat. I clutched the knife, my eyes darting to the hallway, the intruder's presence a ghost in the shadows. Move, Megan. Find safety. My basement door loomed, leading to my server room, a makeshift lab of monitors and cables, my fortress of code. I slipped downstairs, my bare feet silent on the cold steps, locking the door behind me. The hum of servers greeted me, a familiar pulse, grounding my racing mind. Plan, Megan. Use what you know. I sat at the desk, the monitors glowing, my fingers trembling as I accessed the network. The intruder's cameras were my enemy, but also my weapon. Hack them, Megan. Turn the tables. I traced their signals, my code weaving through digital threads, searching for a backdoor. His live stream was live, broadcasting my fear, but I could hijack it, embed a distress signal in the metadata. Each keystroke was a defiance, a spark of hope in the darkness, my skills a shield against his terror. The night was a battlefield, but in this room I was no longer prey. The server room was my stronghold, its monitors a constellation of hope. My fingers flew across the keyboard, code streaming like a lifeline, infiltrating the intruder's cameras. Send it, Megan, now! I embedded an SOS in the livestream's metadata, a silent cry to the outside world, my heart pounding with each command. The signal was out, a beacon in the digital void, but time was a luxury I didn't have. Hurry, Megan, he's coming. The door rattled, a low growl echoing from the other side. You can't hide, Megan, he taunted, his voice a blade. through the wood. I grabbed a soldering iron from the desk, its tip glowing red, a makeshift weapon. "Fight, Megan, don't falter." The door splintered, the intruder bursting in, his face obscured, his eyes wild. I swung, the iron searing his arm, his howl a mix of rage and pain. "Run, Megan, go!" I shoved past him, the knife in my other hand, sprinting. Up the stairs. His footsteps thundered behind, his screams a storm chasing me. The apartment was a maze, its shadows alive, but I reached the front door, my hands fumbling with the lock. Sirens wailed outside, a promise of rescue. As I burst into the night, my voice raw with cries for help. The intruder followed, his pursuit relentless, but the police were faster, their lights cutting through the darkness. The night dissolved into flashing lights, police swarming my apartment, their voices a blur of commands. I collapsed on the lawn, my body trembling, the soldering iron still clutched in my hand. "You're safe, Megan. It's over." But the words were fragile. The intruder's face, now unmasked, a stranger's, burned into my mind. He was handcuffed, his eyes empty, his digital reign shattered by my code. The police found 18 cameras, each a silent witness to my terror. Days later, the apartment stood empty, its walls echoing his threats. I moved, but the nightmares followed. The click of a camera, the glow of a screen, a reminder of how close I'd come to death. "Heal, Megan. You're stronger now." I returned to my studies, my code sharper, my resolve afire. My survival was a testament, a light in the digital shadows, but the scars lingered, a warning of the eyes that watch from the wires.